last 2 years, and those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 6, the top of the morning to you. I am Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A new year means a brand new schedule. And going forward, I'm delighted to be your host every Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And my priority in the course of this year is to get your opinions, your concerns, and yes, your worries onto the national radio and television airwaves. Breaking this morning, the 12th U-turn since Labour came to power, with the Chancellor expected to climb down on her plans to raise business rates in hospitality. But is it too little, too late? And with proposed changes to the drink-drive limit, which will destroy rural locals, why do this government seem to hate pubs so much? Why are pubs so important? Let me know why they're important in terms of practicality, in terms of the community, in terms of our culture. Also this morning, the Chancellor blasts Nigel Farage over his decision to reinstate the two-child benefit cap, as it would disproportionately go to immigrant families. But is it racist to put British taxpayers first? Senior military chiefs warn the Prime Minister about a £28 billion defence black hole. Could Elon Musk's ex-social media platform be banned in censorship Britain? The SNP's creepy plan to keep men in women's prisons, and Storm Garrots Britain. The worst snow for a decade hits large swathes of Britain. We'll be reporting on how hard it is to get around, school closures, motorway madness, cancelled trains, cancelled flights. We've got you covered in this very cold snap. Plus, we'll speak to a weather forecaster about how long it's going to carry on for. Are you struggling with the weather? The Midlands are basically over this morning. Ryan Thrussell, the Midlands, it's not happening. right? Not open for business. The trains, the buses, absolute chaos. Let me know what you're going through. My phone number is 03444991000. The brilliant Damien is on the phones today, and let me tell you, this guy is all about quality control, so you're going to need to have your ducks in a row when you call 03444991000. Is it racist to put British taxpayers first? Let me know your thoughts. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. And the other thing you can do, you can obviously call me. You can also leave a voice note. We love the voice notes because, of course, this is a show dedicated to Alarm Clock Britain. Those who put in more than they take out. You're all busy. You're getting the kids ready for school. You're taking responsibility for your life. You're contributing to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. So therefore, you may just have 30 minutes, but 30 seconds to leave a voice note. If so, do that. Just do that via the phone number 03444991000. This is Talk. As the saying goes, let's talk. Before we bring in my star guest, let's have a look at the front pages. The Sun newspaper. This is a massive showbiz story. Brooklyn goes legal in feud with parents. Send writ like Beckham. It's a great headline. Of course, this is Brooklyn Beckham, who's the spoiled brat, eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham, born to untold riches, right? A millionaire the moment he came out of the womb. And yet he marries a rather controlling, rather frosty American actress who drags him over to the United States, turns him against his family. Do you think there are parallels with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry? I should say so. Anyway, the latest, and this is really, really a major development, Brooklyn Beckham sent parents, David and Victoria Beckham, a legal notice warning that they can now only contact him via lawyers. The extraordinary desist letter also instructs them not to tag him on social media. Folks, it's war. The Times newspaper, top defence chief warns of need for an extra £28 billion. That is our defence black hole. And this is the problem with socialism. Since the Labour government came into power, what have they done? They've put up taxes. They've created red tape. They've got the Workers' Rights Bill, which is going to create more unemployment. Inflation is sticky, thanks to their policies. Inflation busting pay rises in the public sector. Debt higher than it's ever been. Unemployment on the march. And the problem you've got is that if you wreck the economy, it doesn't just make life miserable for everyone watching and listening to this show in terms of the cost of supermarkets, the cost of rent, putting petrol in your car, inflation, which is a tax on everyone. It's not just that. We're less safe as well. Socialism is a threat to the national security of this country because, Ryan Thrussell, executive producer of the show, if you kill the economy, you don't have money for warships and for tanks and for soldiers and for counter-terrorism. So I've got to say that not only is this government incompetent, I would argue, and I say this very, very judiciously, I think this government's dangerous too, but it's only my opinion. They would argue they've inherited a mess from the Tories and they are fixing things that have got a mandate to do so. Let me know your thoughts. 03444991000. By the way, Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. is all about the battle between Rachel Reeves and Nigel Farage. She's accused him of racism because he doesn't like the idea of scrapping the two-child benefit cap because it will disproportionately support families who are of immigrant background that haven't paid into the system. Is it racist to put British people first? Get your opinions onto that right now. What else in the Times? Reeves prepares bailout for pubs drinking at Last Chance Saloon. And guidance on single-sex spaces delayed by cost fears. Bridget Phillipson is delaying the release of guidance that would bar transgender women from single-sex spaces by demanding the equalities regulator calculates how much it will cost businesses. It's pretty simple, isn't it? I've got this crazy idea. Let me know what you think about this at 6:09 in the morning, which is that if it's... You've got 2 bathrooms, haven't you, in every office and in every hospitality venue out there, you know, sort of your public toilets, whatever. And what you can do, you can have a symbol or an image of a lady, and that's for the women, and then a symbol and an image of the men who have a Willy Winkle and all the rest of it, the crown and, what is it, the meat and 2 veg, the crown and 2 chairmen. And that symbol could tell you who's allowed to go into which venue. Is that crazy? How much would that cost? Not too much. If you're on a budget, if you're a hotel or restaurant and you haven't got the resources for any fancy graphic design, you could just have an A4 sheet of paper and it says men and women. Because let me tell you something about the brand new breakfast show on Talk. featuring Jeremy Kyle Monday to Thursday, Mark Dolan Friday to Sunday. Jezza and I, we both know what a woman is. The people that watch and listen to this show know what a woman is. The only people that don't know what a woman is are those who govern us. The newspaper, Putin's shadow fleet in UK waters as ministers pledge to use hard power. We need defence, folks. Has everyone forgotten the lessons of 2 world wars? And you don't destroy the economy and hope then to be safe. Daily Star. To us, Terry was just a dad. Very sad news about the passing of football legend Terry Yorath. Traitors at War, Cloak and Daggers, Fiona and Rachel, it's all kicking off. If you don't watch The Traitors, that will mean nothing to you. And I don't watch The Traitors. Daily Mirror, exclusive, freeloader Farage, where's Wally? Angering Clacton after their MP's latest overseas jaunt, a freebie in Abu Dhabi. Nigel Farage was blasted for ignoring his day job after jetting off to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The Reform leader was pictured on the VIP jaunt last month as records revealed he's flown some 56,000 miles since becoming an MP in July 2024 on freebie trips. But constituents in Clacton, Essex are furious. One said he should be dealing with problems we are facing, not boosting his bank account. Well, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because the Daily Mirror were very quiet when it was revealed that a billionaire had paid for the Prime Minister's spectacles, his suits and his tickets to the Arsenal. Funny that. They were very quiet. Daily Express. Cheers. It's yet another too late U-turn from PM. Plans to ease huge business rate rises on pubs are too little too late, claim the Conservatives. Daily Mail. Pub U-turn too little too late as Starmer makes his 12th policy climb down with rates relief plan. Kemi and hospitality chiefs say it's just not enough. Reeves to climb down on pub tax, says the Daily Telegraph. Britain shuts down ahead of snow bomb is the other story. And Iran switches off internet as protests mount. The Guardian, go back home. Now 34 ex-pupils accuse Farage of racist behaviour. I'll be dealing with that story a little later in the show, and I'll be giving it short shrift. And Labour to U-turn on pub tax rises after outcry. We'll get more front pages in just a moment, but reacting to the big stories of the day, one of the finest journalists in the country, broadcaster and media specialist, Linda Jubilee. Linda, it's great to have you on the show, and I understand that the weather made it difficult for you to get in.
Well, there were a few problems this morning, I must admit, and I do live in a charming little town in the country, buried in the hills, so sometimes you have to expect the downside as well as the upside of living in a tight-knit community. But anyway, I'm on air now.
Listen, we got a message from the boss this morning saying, weather, weather, weather. That is the lead story of the day. And of course, he's absolutely right, because we have so many viewers and listeners to this show who are waking up to cancelled trains, cancelled buses, gridlocked motorways and cancelled flights. It's chaos out there.
Yep, it is. And this happens whenever there's any kind of extreme weather, because, of course, we're not really prepared for it in this country. And in some ways, we really can't be, because we'd have to spend a huge amount of money doing what some countries like Canada, or who build their shopping centres underground, or Poland, who have very, very strong rail links that don't collapse when there's a snowflake on the line. So we can expect a bit of difficulty. And this is the heaviest snowfall in decades, apparently, in some parts of the UK. It's a long time since I've seen any weather like this. I was thinking about it just a couple of minutes ago when I was a young trainee journalist on the Western Mail. I can remember the snow was so heavy that the roof of the National Sports Centre collapsed with the weight of the snow on top of it.
You see, I'd have been happy, because if I was at school, then games would have been cancelled. It wasn't really my bag. But, I mean, this is a major, major problem. Like so much of the issues, so many of the issues facing this country, Linda Jubilee, this is about infrastructure in which we have underinvested for decades, whether it's broadband, whether it's roads, whether it's our rail network, and even buses, whether it's issues like, potholes. We just haven't invested in the country, reservoirs, the water supply, the list goes on.
Yep, I know. And I drove over a huge pothole in the festive period. And I think I've virtually demolished the front axis of my car. It was just unbelievable.
Has the Jag been written off, Linda?
I wish. But I think the trouble is that it is true that we have failed to invest in this country. We've not mended the roof while the sun was shining.
Yeah.
The sun isn't shining, and we've got a broken roof. And the problem is that everyone keeps on and on about, we're talking ourselves down. We need to talk ourselves up. We need a lot more than just talking going on here. I think we need to brace ourselves. We are going to have a very difficult 5 years, and we have to tighten our belts. We have to make economies. We have to we have to really, really work hard now at how we approach everything at quite a profound level. And I'm sure that we'll be discussing defence spending later on.
Yeah.
Of course, if a nation can't defend itself, everything else is by the by, really. So we have to work at this now, because we're supposed to get defence spending from 2.5 to 3.5% of GDP. Now, that might sound like only 1%. In fact, it is an enormous leap, and will require many sacrifices in many key areas.
Most definitely. And what I also want to say is that you mentioned military spending. Well, that's infrastructure too, the most important kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a hollowed out army. We haven't really invested enough in our Navy, a bit more maybe. We've got, Air Force issues there. We've got shortages of equipment. We've got bad infrastructure at military bases. We've got sometimes terrible accommodation for our troops. And all of this has got to be sorted. Of course, if you invest the money into that kind of infrastructure in the military, you are, but absolutely by extension, also investing in what we all benefit from, not just in our defence terms, but in terms of road and rail links and everything else. So we need to crack on with this, as the Army would say, and get spending on defence.
Most definitely. And you mentioned other aspects of infrastructure. We've got those leaky pipes, we've got polluted rivers. And I remember the Liberal Democrat MP Layla Moran publishing on her election leaflet her pride at having rejected a reservoir in her constituency.
I mean, that's utterly ludicrous. That's kind of the worst kind of NIMBYism as well. Mm-hmm. That's just so shocking. We need more reservoirs. We need far more investment in infrastructure. I live in my little market town, as you know, and we have had problem after problem after problem because the pumping station in the local area is only working at 50% capacity. Now, that has been the situation for 18 months. And as far as I know, it hasn't properly been rectified. I see Thames water vans, they're like circulating the area like a troop of ants, month after month after month, achieving almost nothing. It's just shocking because, as you know, I live right by the Thames. I used to be able to swim in that river when I was a teenager. Yeah. I can't now. It's absolutely filthy.
Most definitely. Well, my lad's up at college in Lancaster, and we quite like to drive over to Lake Windermere, which is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. And apparently that's got pure effluent being pumped into it. It looks and feels clean, but it ain't. Listen, so much more to come. How are you getting on with the weather? Let me know. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. How bad is it in your area? Storm Goretti is garrotting Britain. This from an unnamed texter who says, "Good morning, Mark. Why is everything closed today? We had a hurricane back in 1987. I was 14 years old. I went out on my BMX at 6 a.m. and did 2 paper rounds. Trees had fallen, winds gusted up to 140 miles an hour. Why is everyone so weak now? Why does nothing work?" Well, you're so right, Andy. It's actually Andy. There you go. Sorry, that's your name, in West Drayton. Andy's right because, in fact, go to Canada, go to Scandinavia, and the weather outside, what we've got in Britain, Garotti, that's like a kind of warm August afternoon compared to what they go through every winter. And they don't struggle. I've just come back from Austria and they've got the snow plows out. They are tooled up. Jan in Newcastle says, "Good morning, Mark. Lovely to see you." Well, it's great to be with all of you. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. You and me for 2026. Jan says, "So people like Jim Dale who have been on your show spouting that climate change is terrible. Well, we don't get snow these days. That's what he says. I hope he and others are looking at our country at the moment because there is a lot of it. Is that going to change their minds or their rhetoric? No, because they have an agenda, don't they? Well, I agree with you there. And I received an email this morning from the excellent Daily Skeptic newspaper, whose headline is "Dramatic Fall in Global Temperatures Ignored by Narrative-Captured Mainstream Media." They've gone very quiet. Do you remember how disappointed they were when there wasn't a heat wave in the summer? Because it killed the story. Listen, so many more responses to get through, but a quick one from Dave. Good morning, Mark. It's snow down south and it's headline news. We've had 12 inches of snow in Aberdeen for over a week and we've cracked on. Thank God for breakfast clubs. Oh, hang on, schools are closed. Dave, make it make sense. So much more to come. Next up, this Labour government's 12th U-turn in 18 months. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up to 6:23, this is Talk Breakfast. Linda says, good morning, Mark. Good to listen to you. I definitely now feel like we're living in a socialist state. It is so depressing. Sean says, good morning, Mark. Keith Starlin, Rachel Thieves and this incompetent Labour Party's achievements so far. 5 million NHS appointments by cancelling 8 million. Employment up by increasing unemployment every month. Economic growth by driving us towards a recession and increasing the tax burden by £70 billion and closing businesses. 150 quid off our energy bills by increasing them by about 500 quid. The list is endless for these lying, disgusting morons. We need to get them out now, says Sean in Gloucester. And how about this from Amanda? And this is in relation to Labour's 12th U-turn in 18 months. And it's Amanda who says, good morning, Mark. It's not just pubs and hospitality. This totally irresponsible and dangerous government are hell-bent on destroying the entire country. It's a nightmare. Heaven help us, she says. Well, listen, brilliant stuff. More of your thoughts coming. But with me live down the line from her rural home is the one and only Linda Jubilee, broadcaster and media specialist. And what we have, according to the Daily Telegraph, is the 12th U-turn from this government in 18 months. Reeves to climb down on pub tax. Your reaction?
Well, first of all, there is the 12th U-turn, and that's because this government can't make up its mind, and that's because Keir Starmer doesn't know his own mind, and that's why he fluctuates so much. And because he's at the top of the tree, that kind of mindset and outlook percolates downwards. Now, your previous caller is quite right. It isn't just pubs and it isn't just hospitality. It is a failure to support business. This government does support the public sector. There's nothing wrong with that. But the public sector doesn't generate money. It uses money. You need to support the commercial sector because small to medium enterprises are a growth engine. They are wealth creators. And key to all of that are the pubs, not just because they generate money, but because we have a sense of community around them. You know, Mark, that I cut my teeth as a journalist when Fleet Street was in Fleet Street, where every single newspaper had its own pub. There was a whole pub culture that's actually in my DNA. And I regard the pub as central to British life. I was devastated to hear just before Christmas that a pub that has been here since I was a young girl has now closed. And that is a tremendous loss to the community. Now, I can see that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have effected this 12th U-turn. But sadly, that is too little too late. Remember, many of these pubs have a kind of hand-to-mouth existence. They're living on very, very fine margins. And what's happened here is they've missed the festive period. We're entering a period now where trade will be quiet for months on end. St. Valentine's Day ain't going to save anyone. So we've missed the boat. Something is happening to help, but I don't really know whether it will be enough. But the moot point, the point I'm trying to make, is that this government does not support business growth.
Well, it doesn't. And the other issue you got is that if you have policies which depress economic activity, and we've seen that in the growth numbers, well, then that will impact hospitality, because my viewers and listeners, if they are struggling financially, what's the first thing to go? Yeah. Restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely.
The pub. You can get a pint of Kronenberg in a can for about £1 at Asda or Aldi or Sainsbury's. Drinking at home is very cheap. It's a luxury to spend £7 on a pint of Stella in your local. And of course, it's much a preferable thing to do. People can't afford it. And there's a big backlog of costs, isn't there, for hospitality? We had the COVID pandemic, so many of them, of course, lost money because they were forced to shut during COVID. The support they got from the government didn't even touch the sides, Linda. And a lot of them are carrying post-COVID debt and the notorious bounce back loans. Then we've had inflation, which has, of course, increased the cost of everything, whether it's, the gas to make the beer bubbly, and the beer itself has gone up. And, everything's gone up, up, up. The NIC's national insurance raid. This is a litany of problems for hospitality. Do you think this Labour government have a problem with pubs, that they're not protecting them more?
They definitely have a problem with pubs. They aren't protecting them enough. But I think their real problem is their complete failure to understand business. And that is shown by the fact that, as far as I know, there's no one with any real business experience on the front bench. And there are very, very few backbench MPs with any business experience. So they simply don't know what it's like to have to try and make payroll every month, to watch your margins, where you can squeeze in one area in order to invest in another area, whether you bring on talent into your business because you think that people are the investment of the future. They just don't understand those things because they don't have any experience of them.
Most definitely. A headline in yesterday's Telegraph, Linda, from Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition. Labour doesn't understand that pubs hold this country together. Is there a cultural issue, not just with business on the part of this administration, but the very idea of your local boozer?
Yeah, I find that extraordinary, actually, from a socialist party, from the Working People's Party, that you wouldn't understand this. But I don't think Kemi Badenoch is clear. In the clear over this. I mean, the fact is that she's pointing the finger of blame at the Labour Party, but she herself is not, well, Conservatives are not themselves without blame here either. I don't think they gave enough support to business when they were in power. I think you've got a lot of politicians here from different parties who actually take a short-term view and they're prepared to kick the can down the road for 5 years so that they get in the next election, and then they coast through for as long as they can. It's about time we had a leader who was prepared to invest in this country long term and actually be prepared to suck up a bit of criticism in the short term so that they could make a difference to my kids' futures and to your kids' future, Mark, because I despair sometimes. My kids, they don't go to the pub anymore. They just don't go. They do what you do, or you said people do. You might go to the supermarket or the offie to get a can or a bottle of wine, and then you go out, and if the weather's out, you find somewhere nice to sit and you drink out there, or maybe in your backyard, whatever. But they're not going to pubs, not anywhere to the extent that I did when I was younger.
Well, 1,000 pubs have banned Labour MPs from their venues in objection to their treatment at the hands of this government, particularly the proposed hike in business rates and the revaluation of rural venues that may be paying business rates for the first time. Just for old time's sake, here's a clip of the Prime Minister getting kicked out of a pub during COVID, when, of course, hospitality was absolutely clobbered and Keir Starmer was capped in lockdown. Take a listen.
That man is not allowed in my pub. No, Laura. I'm not going to physically hurt him. That man... Oi! That's assault. I am not bothering you. I am not bothering him. That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Calm yourself down. Get out of my pub. Calm down. Thank you.
Yes, well, of course, that's a little bit of historic anger. But, Linda, the anger is ongoing, isn't it? You know, this is a government that seems semi-detached from the concerns of its own population, whether it's illegal immigration, unsustainable mass migration, inflation, unemployment, the treatment of pensioners, the farmers, aspirational families with kids in private school, the pubs, the list goes on.
In fact, I'd say the right since Keir Starmer was campaigning or carrying that Ming vase across the lobby floor, as it was characterised at the time, he had a difficult path to tread. That's true, but what he did was in order to appeal to the city, to the corporate sector, the commercial sector, he actually had to water down socialist ideals, which actually wouldn't be a bad thing. But then once he's in power, he's held to ransom by a load of backbench MPs who are on very, very small majorities, a lot of them. I mean, his majority is a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep. So every time he hits an ideological hurdle, a political hurdle, he finds himself on the opposite side of those people doing the voting. And that is leading to chaos, because in order even to have half a chance of straightening this country out, you have to know your own mind, because you need vision. Without vision, you can't form a strategy, and therefore your tactical and operational difficulties never, ever materialise in a straightforward way. And that's exactly where we are right now.
And you are right to blame the Tories as well. We haven't really had a truly business-friendly environment, I would argue, since the 80s and Mrs. Thatcher's economic revolution. Remember, even Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses had a aluminium briefcase and a sharp suit and started his own business. And I really, really miss those days of aspiration and social mobility. Linda, stay with us. Lots more to come. Got a very important text message from Jennifer. I hope you're listening, Jennifer. And I understand that you watch as well. And Jennifer said, "Good morning, Mark. I generally only watch Talk Breakfast and have done so for a few years now and really enjoy you on the weekends." Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. She goes on to say, "But since changes have been made, I've increasingly felt pushed away, as both you and Jeremy constantly bang on about hard-working alarm clock Brits." Jennifer says it's actually quite hurtful as you isolate others that have been very loyal viewers that don't quite fit your ideal watcher and listener. Very disappointed. Well, Jennifer, a couple of things to say at 34 minutes past 6 in the morning. First of all, thank you for watching. Secondly, I love you. I love you, Jennifer, because let me tell you that when Jezza and I talk about Alarm Clock Britain, we're also talking about retired people who have paid into the system and have now put their feet up after a life of toil. And we also talk about people who are on benefits that need them because they cannot work, because their back is completely gone, or because they've got bipolar disorder or a broken leg, or they need a new hip. And there are millions of people who need state support who are not able to work. And that is why, Jennifer, we willingly pay our taxes. My objection, and dare I speak for Jezza as well, would be those who are off sick for 12 months because of stress or bereavement or mental health or any of that stuff, which is obviously a scam and which is unaffordable and is an abuse of the welfare state. The welfare state was there as a safety net and it's become a lifestyle choice. But whether or not you set your alarm, whether you're in work at the moment, is not the story. It's about the people that deserve state resources versus those that don't. And Jennifer, I bet you that if you get resources, you absolutely deserve them. And I know that because if you watch this show, you've got common sense. This is the home of common sense. So, Jennifer, thank you for your points about alarm clock Brits. We need to expend the franchise that goes beyond alarm clock Brits to all loyal, hardworking, patriotic Brits who have put more in than they've taken out. So, Jennifer, I hope that makes sense, and we love your work, and keep tuned. Don't you worry. This show is for you and then some. Lots more to come. Is it racist to put British people first? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 6:38. You're listening to Talk Breakfast, and we've got so much to get through. By the way, the Reform UK mayoral candidate for London, Layla Cunningham, joins us on the show later, as does the brilliant journalist Dan Hodges and ex-Tory MP, a grandee of the party, Sir Michael Fabricant, no less. But do Labour have a problem with pubs? This is a voice note from Perry.
Morning, Mark. I think the reason Labour thought they could get away with this is, A, they know that they're banned from most pubs, so they know that most publicans won't vote for them. And also, they know it's not going to affect their Muslim vote.
Perry, thank you for that. And it's a very, very fair point. Keep those voice notes coming. Meanwhile, this is reported in the Guardian newspaper, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has said she was angered by Nigel Farage's suggestion that only British-born families should have the two-child benefit cap lifted, saying the Reform UK leader would keep children in poverty based upon their skin colour. There are several problems here, are there not, broadcaster and media specialist Linda Jubilee? First of all, the Chancellor unwittingly implies that if you're British, you're white, or to be British, you have to be.
Yeah, that was my first observation. At the end of the day, people talk about British born, but British born could mean anything. That means you're a citizen of this country. The moot point here is, when it comes to the economy, is who is paying money into the exchequer and who is not. Now, that's what we need to concentrate on, because we need to get more money in. At the moment, we've got something like 1 in 4 people are economically inactive. We need to work on that particular problem and stop throwing these red herrings into the mix. Rachel Reeves should stop talking and start doing. We need to do something about this. We've got a really big and growing ageing population, which obviously costs a lot of money to support in terms of the NHS. And we've got NEETs at the other end of the spectrum, no one in education, training or whatever. And you've only got a smaller and smaller band of people in the middle who are actually earning the money to put the tax into the exchequer. Now, that's the problem we need to be concentrating on instead of rabbiting on about, suggestions of racism. As far as I know, I meet very few people who even utter a racist comment. It's not racist to say that you are really worried about the number of people that now take benefits in this country. Everybody is worried about that because the numbers are huge and growing. It's just common sense to point that out.
Indeed, and is it also not an aggravating factor that this costly policy of lifting the two-child benefit cap at the cost of £3 billion a year will disproportionately benefit foreign-born nationals? That's a conversation we need to have, and it's not a racist one.
Well, it disproportionately favours large families, obviously. And I, for one, although I might be unpopular, do not believe that if people want more than 2 children, I believe that they should pay if they want more than 2. They should get child benefit for up to 2, and that's it. And I know perfectly well that my children, my friends' children, they worry about having any children in the current era because they worry that they may not be able to support them properly without the help from the state. But it is true, it is statistically true that when you get communities like the Pakistan community, no problem with many of them, Afghans, etc., no problem with many of them.
British Somalians.
Somalis, whatever. But it's definitely the Afghans and the Pakistanis favour large families because historically and culturally, they come from countries where they don't have any kind of benefit system, and their children are their investment in the future. They need to have those children so that when they get old, they've got someone to look after them. I understand that completely. But the problem is you are now funding some families. And bear in mind, Mark, as you know, I delivered conversational classes, English conversational classes, particularly to Afghans after the fall of Kabul. I met women who were having 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 children. That's common. That is common. It is obvious. And they don't work because it's not culturally acceptable for mothers of such large families to work. Meanwhile, over at the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who are struggling to hold down 2 jobs. They're trying to find a good home near a good school. They're worried about starting a family, but if they start a family, they might only have 1 child or have 2 child. I mean, you've got to call it out for what it is. That is not a racist view. That is a fair and honest view.
And the facts don't care about your feelings. Natasha says, good morning, Mark. If we didn't spend billions on illegal immigrants, we would have plenty to invest in infrastructure, but nothing will change under Labour. Now, Natasha, you've got people on the left that would call that dog whistle. Well, I disagree, and I agree with you, because, for example, the cost of accommodating illegal immigrants is upwards of £15 billion a year all in. That's 15 billion. Imagine 15 billion a year on bridges, roads, rail, waterways and reservoirs. Extraordinary amounts of money. Zoe in Lancashire says, good morning, Mark. This cap reform wants to lift is for all working British-born citizens. What Labour want is to give it to everyone regardless of citizenship. We can't afford it, and remember, the parents spend the money, not the kids, so it won't stop child poverty. A lot of these parents will have more money for alcohol, tattoos and fags. Outrageous. I know, I see this on a daily basis. That's another point, by the way, going back to this 2-child benefit cap, Linda. We're all concerned, you, myself, the viewers and listeners of this show, about child poverty. It's devastating that a rich country like Britain has it, but there is no evidence that lifting the 2-child benefit cap is going to actually end child poverty. Giving adults who have children money is not the same thing.
Not at all. And I often ask myself that question, who ultimately gets the money? Now, there are some really fantastic people out there, particularly single mothers who are working hard, who need every penny they can get to try and raise their children. I fully appreciate that. But there are other people who spend the money in a completely feckless way, and that needs to be stopped. I can't believe that this has actually happened, but we got to live with it. I mean, it's just incredible that you are imposing this amount of expenditure on this country when we know that we are living in the most dangerous post-war period, since the Second World War, that is, and we don't have enough money to properly supply our armed forces. It's utterly ridiculous.
It most definitely is. Is there a counter-argument that we've got an ageing population, that we need big families?
I think that it is certainly true that we have a negative birth rate, and it would be a good idea if we could have not 6, 10 children, but we start to get to a point where we've got a reasonable birth rate, because you can't have such a big slab of the population, as I said earlier, dependent on so few people who are actually earning money. But measures like that aren't going to happen quickly. You aren't suddenly going to persuade children like my children at their age, they're all in their 20s, one's over 30. You can't suddenly persuade them that it's a great idea to have children. And then if they do have children, how long is it before those children are productive members of society? It's another 25 years. So obviously that's a very, very long-term range. But it is true that countries have a really big problem when it comes to the aging population. You only have to look at Japan, which is ahead of us in terms of an aging population. And finally, the great isolationists of the region, apart from North Korea, they are finally allowing a bit more sustained and researched immigration. Because, of course, there's nothing actually wrong with immigration.
Of course not.
If you control it, it can be a good thing. The problem is we have let the whole thing run rampant.
Yes, indeed. And people have come to this country without checks and balances. We didn't get the Australian points system that we were promised post-Brexit. I believe in immigration. What I believe in is immigration where integration is non-negotiable, where learning the language is non-negotiable,
Absolutely.
where working hard and not taking benefits is non-negotiable, and following the rule of law is non-negotiable. And as you say, that hasn't happened in a long time. Listen, lots more to come. You won't believe this story, which is 2 homeless men were told they could not stay in their pre-booked Holiday Inn Express hotel room on a night when temperatures plunged to -6. So this is homeless British people that can't stay in a hotel. Their big mistake was not coming to this country on a dinghy. It's 6:48, that's next.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK on on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. this morning. Dolan's Dispatch is on the way at 9 a.m. Is it racist to put the British people first? Looking forward to today's Dolan's Dispatch. It might get me cancelled. Good. Steve says, good morning, Mark. We may have a falling birth rate, but it's the government that needs to get a grip and stop relying on this perpetual 2 or 3% growth year on year that they're addicted to. All it does is prop up our debt-based banking system. Why do we keep doing it? Keep increasing the population till our island is full. This is from Nadia. Hi, Mark. Reduce taxes for parents, not give extra child benefit to make raising a family of over 2 easier. It would be good if people could have a decent standard of living without the need for benefits, but I doubt that's going to happen. Sharon in Staffordshire. Good morning, Sharon. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. She says, good morning, Mark. I can tell you that these people's children will never contribute to society. They will live off benefits as well. It's a generational thing. It is cultural. I'll get to more of your feedback and thoughts very shortly. But what about this story featured in the Mail and in the BBC website? It's an amazing story. Here it goes. And it's about 2 homeless men who could not stay in their pre-booked Holiday Inn Express hotel room on a night when temperatures plunged to -6. Their big mistake, obviously, was not coming to the country on a dinghy, at which point they'd have got a 5-star service. This story, I would argue, Linda Jubilee, reflects just how bonkers the country has become, how skewed our nation's priorities have become.
Well, the spirit of Christmas is well and truly dead and buried here. Remind me of the name of the hotel chain, or are we allowed to say it?
We are. Holiday Inn Express. The rooms, Linda, were booked by a charity called Two Brews. But despite volunteer Amanda Thompson accompanying the men to the hotel, she said the group were told the hotel will not allow them. It is the company's policy. A Holiday Inn Express Manchester spokesperson has since apologised, saying the incident was not in keeping with our policy of welcoming all. The optics of this are pretty bad, aren't they? You've got ex-injured service personnel, veterans sleeping rough on the streets, homeless people that can't get into a prepaid room at a Holiday Express. Meanwhile, enter the country illegally and off you go to the Ritz.
Yeah, the thing is, let me just go back to, because I do a fair amount of media advice, and the hotel people there are saying, what did they say? It's not we apologise for this because it's not our policy to discriminate in people in this way. That's just cheap words. That's just wordage. That's just, I'm going to say sorry, but I'm not actually going to mean it. Because the fact of the matter is, on the ground, it was their policy. They should be making proper amends, to those people. There should be some form of compensation, because it breaks my heart, actually, every time I see people of any ethnicity, of any nationality, actually, to see people on the streets in the cold midwinter is a terrible, terrible thing. But imagine how bad it is that a charity actually prepaid for these rooms. They were booked and the hotel still turns them away in the current appalling weather conditions. It's subhuman. That's what it is.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the messaging is the big problem in this story, isn't it?
You mean the messaging over the apology?
Well, no, yeah, there is that. But also just the optics of people that spill into the country, that land on our shores, having crossed the channel in an illegal, very, very dangerous boat, immediately accommodated 3 meals a day. Homeless people that a charity have helped can't get a roof over their head. I mean, it's like you mentioned earlier, it's wrong to blame this Labour government for that policy, because it's the kind of thing that would have happened under the Tories too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt about it that when illegal immigrants arrive in this country, they are processed fairly quickly, and at the moment they are moved into hotels, and there is a roof over their head. They're given 3 meals a day. They have no expenses. They're completely cared for, and yet these two people are out on the streets. Frankly, we should be launching, never mind this particular episode, but we should be launching some kind of program in this country so that people are not living on the streets at whatever point in the year, and they're cared for and supported so that they can maybe return to the workforce. No one is prepared to put the grind in to make that kind of thing happen. That would be enormously beneficial to society on several levels, on a community level, on a charity social level, on a financial level. But no one is prepared to put the work in to make that kind of thing happen. Least of all, a socialist government.
You're absolutely right about that. Pete the Mole says, good morning, Mark. The two homeless men, I'm surprised the BBC didn't demand to know why they didn't have a TV licence. Also, these companies like Holiday Inn, always sorry after the fact. Also, another unnamed texter has said, Mark, would you stop talking about people coming by dinghy? They are taxied here by our border force. Get it right. Michael says, good morning, Mark. Yes, every small boat that arrives on the beach is counted as more votes for Labour. That's why they will never stop the boats. That's Michael in Hockley. And how about this from Cliff in Berkshire? Good morning, Mark. Linda suggests at some level, elderly people are a problem. We worked and handed over shed loads of money to the gangster state while still setting aside monies for our retirement, whilst the gangster state did not do the same. Rather than investing that money in a wealth fund, they threw money around like a sailor on shore leave and bought the world and its mother a drink. It's a fair point, isn't it, that the government handles its finances very differently to how our viewers and listeners do, Linda?
I think that's true. Let me just say first thing in reply to that comment from the listener there.
Cliff, yeah.
I had never at any point in any of the conversations I have put down older people. I lost my mother a year ago to pulmonary fibrosis at 88, and my father, sadly, a bit earlier, to vascular dementia. My father worked from the age of 14 and my mother worked from the age of 16, which is why when I grew up, I started working in a hairdresser's shop on a Saturday at the age of 14 too. I never, ever, ever underestimate how hard our older generation, particularly like my parents, who were children during the Second World War, I never underestimate how hard they work. But it is unavoidable to say that the pressure on the NHS from a very large and growing older population affects how much money is needed to support them. We can see that in terms of social care not being available. We can see that in NHS beds being blocked by people who should be moved into social care. And it's a problem that affects every country with an ageing population around the world. But mark my words, I never underestimate the contribution made by people like my parents and probably yours.
Well, most definitely. And that's why I appreciated Jennifer's text message earlier about, you know, not everyone that watches and listens to the show is alarm clock Britain. There are people who are unable to work. It's not their fault. That's why we pay our taxes. And there are people who are retired who paid into the system. Linda, I've only got a couple of seconds, but it's a pretty explosive story in the Sun newspaper. Send writ like Beckham. But David Beckham's eldest son, Brooklyn, who lives in the United States now, has said to his parents, you can only talk to me through lawyers. My goodness, this one has gone to war, hasn't it?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there are very, very few instances where this kind of family breakdown is in any way justified. And this has been rambling on for years now.
Yeah.
I think it's extraordinary that they can't get their act together. You know, we've got really serious problems right around the world with collapsing economies, with a war, with conflict, with really, really big problems. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of Victoria Beckham. I've watched her documentary twice on Netflix. I love it. I love her clothes, love her bag.
You're so right, Linda. Get a grip. My thanks to the brilliant Linda Jubilee. More to
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 7, top of the morning to you. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A new year means a brand new schedule, and going forward, I'm delighted to be your host every Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. My priority will be getting your views, your concerns and your opinions on the national television radio airwaves. Now, breaking this morning, the 12th U-turn in 18 months. That's right, another Labour U-turn, with the Chancellor expected to climb down on her plans to raise business rates in hospitality. But is it too little too late? And with proposed changes to the drink-drive limit, which will destroy rural locals, why do this government seem to hate pubs so much? Meanwhile, the Chancellor blasts Nigel Farage over his decision to reinstate the two-child benefit cap if he becomes Prime Minister. And she's concerned because she thinks he's racist. But is it racist to put British taxpayers first? Plus, Rachel from accounts, has got caught up in her own race row, which I'll be dealing with in Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. She's effectively implied that you have to be white to be British. How ironic! She's the very thing that the left accuse everyone else of. Is she going to apologise? Also this morning, senior military chiefs warned the Prime Minister about a £28 billion defence black hole. Could Elon Musk's ex-social media platform be banned in censorship Britain? And the SNP's secret plan to keep men in women's prisons. And a massive story. Storm garrots Britain. The worst snow for a decade hit large parts of the country. We'll be reporting on how just hard it is to get around. School closures, motorway madness, cancelled trains, cancelled flights. I'll let you know when this severe weather is going to end, and we'll have a look at the crumbling infrastructure of this country. Are you affected by the snow? The Midlands, by the way, just over, right? In lockdown. I don't like using that word because it brings back unhappy memories. But what are you going through? Tell me about your situation with the weather. Are you able to get to work? Are you able to get your kids to school? 03444 499 1000. And what about this for a story? You won't believe it, folks. This is two homeless men who were told they could not stay in their pre-booked Holiday Inn Express hotel room on a night when temperatures plunged to -6. Their big mistake, of course, was not coming to the country on a dinghy, at which point they'd be getting 5-star treatment, wouldn't they? A full English breakfast, 3 meals a day, a well-stocked minibar, and tea and coffee making facilities. Homeless Brits can't get into a hotel, break into the country, off you go to the Dorchester. Welcome to Broken Britain. So my question to you this morning, as Nigel Farage decides to withdraw his support for scrapping the two-child benefit cap, is it racist to put Brits first? 0344 499 1000. The leader of Reform UK has pointed out that this policy of scrapping the two-child benefit cap will disproportionately welcome and support immigrant families. So let me know your thoughts. You can send a word TALK to 87222. Send me a voice note. As the saying goes, let's talk. And before we welcome my star guests, I'm delighted to give you today's front pages. And you got the Times newspaper. Rachel Reeves prepares bailout for pubs that are drinking at the Last Chance saloon. Rachel Reeves is poised to announce a bailout worth around £300 million for pubs that have been left on the brink of bankruptcy by rising business rates in Labour's 12th major U-turn since coming to power. Guidance on single-sex spaces delayed by cost fears, and top defence chief warns of need for an extra £28 billion. Daily Telegraph reads to climb down on pub tax, and Britain shuts down ahead of snow bomb. Guardian newspaper, go back home. Now 34 ex-pupils accuse Farage of racist schoolboy behaviour. Daily Mail, pub U-turns too little too late. Sun newspaper, send writ like Beckham. David Beckham's eldest son has said to his parents, you can now only talk to me through lawyers. But here's a question. Who's paying for those lawyers? Probably David Beckham. Daily Express, cheers. It's yet another too late U-turn from the Prime Minister. And from the Daily Mirror. Exclusive, freeloader Farage, where's Wally? Anger in Clacton after their MP's latest overseas jaunt. A freebie in Abu Dhabi. Nigel Farage was blasted for ignoring his day job after jetting off to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Funny that the Daily Mirror, very quiet when it was revealed that the Prime Minister's spectacles, suit and tickets to Arsenal was paid for by a billionaire donor. Funny that. Let's get reaction to all of the big stories of the day in the company of broadcaster, historian and fellow at the New Culture Forum, Rafe Hadel-Mancu. Good morning, Rafe.
Good morning, Mark.
Another U-turn from this government, the 12th in 18 months. It's almost like they don't know what they're doing.
Well, they know how to do one thing, and that's do a U-turn. That seems to be the only thing that they've excelled at over the course of their tenure.
It means that their policies are wrong, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think we've ever had, in such a short period of time, so many U-turns committed by a government. You know, they say it's better if they can make these decisions once they have more knowledge. It just seems to the public that they haven't got a clue what they're doing. They have no political instinct, no political antennae, be it the winter fuel allowance, be it this. They seem to basically be trying to make themselves as unpopular as they possibly can. I sometimes wonder whether Keir Starmer's being advised by his enemies, because it seems as if he wants to drag his poll rating, which is already in the doldrums, even lower. Look, there was a point not so long ago when Rachel Reeves actually promised at the dispatch box the lowest tax rate since 1991 for pubs. Then at the last budget, it was unbelievable. They would, revalue their business rate bills, and they were going to rocket over the next 3 years by 78%, which is about 13,000 on average. And then employers' national insurance was up, business rates were up for pubs, alcohol duty was up for pubs. And then, of course, the government wanted to reduce the drink-drive limit. So if you even had 1 pint of beer in a pub, that would be too much to drive, which would absolutely kill so many pubs around the country. And pubs are one of the critical aspects of the British character, I would say. Let's remember, a pub is a public house. It was a place for the communities to gather. Many houses weren't big enough for people to socialize, so everyone on the street would go to the pub on the corner, and that's where you would meet. They're fundamentally important for our culture and for our lives. They need defending. Our pub landlords need support. I'm grateful that they're U-turning on this, but this should never have been a policy in the first place.
We've seen their treatment of farmers who they consider to be rich. They think that every farmer is going around in a 80 grand Range Rover with massive houses. They think it's all Clarkson's farm, which it's not. Most farmers, if you calculated the numbers, barely on the minimum wage. Is there a similar issue with this Labour government's attitude towards pubs? Have Labour as a movement politically got a blind spot about the importance of pubs to our culture and our communities?
They absolutely do. But even more importantly, remember, the Labour front bench doesn't have almost anybody who's actually ever run a company in their lives. They have no knowledge about this. And of course, many on the left are they're instinctively hostile to business as a whole. And for them, they just see pubs as being money-making enterprise. But you're quite right. Pubs are a home from home. They're a community living room, a place of friendship. Gosh, British history is full of many of our great political movements was created in pubs. The Goon Show with Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan, they started in a pub. I mean, all their pubs are so intrinsic to so many different aspects of British lives, not let alone places where new bands can start and so forth, is absolute madness at a time when they're already closing at such a high rate because people's drinking habits are changing and because of mass immigration with large communities going into areas who don't drink alcohol because of their religion. We need to give our pubs every support that we can. One good thing, Kemi Badenoch, I don't compliment her very much, but she's saying that we should remove rates altogether. for pubs. And I think that would be an excellent idea.
Well, it would be an excellent idea. You've always been brilliant, Rafe, on not just politics and economics, but the importance of British culture, which is slowly being eroded by this Labour government, who I don't think particularly like Britain. But that's just my humble opinion. Of course, the Prime Minister would challenge that and would argue he's a great patriot with a strong mandate to transform the fortunes of the country. Let's get to another story, and it's a big, big concern for me and for my viewers and listeners, Rafe. Top Defence Chief warns of need for an extra £28 billion. The issue you got with socialism, it's not just that socialists run out of other people's money. It imperils the national security of a country if you kill the economy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is absolutely infuriating, because how many times have we heard Keir Starmer talk tough? We're going to deploy troops to the Ukraine. Of course, we've now had this issue with the Russian tanker. We haven't been in such a febrile time. You know, we know what America is flexing its muscles. You know, we need in Europe to be doing the same thing as well. And we've promised we're going to raise defence spending to 2.5 and then to 3 and then to 3.5%. But there's no evidence of this. The government talks stuff, but the money simply hasn't been coming in to the military. Let's be clear, this is a dereliction of duty. The first duty of a government, the first duty is to protect the country and its people. And of course, at a time when you would think we're going to be increasing our spending, now defence chiefs are being forced to consider huge cuts to the Ajax armoured vehicle programme, perhaps cuts to tanks. I mean, we're not going to have any ability to deploy any forces in Ukraine if we're going to be so mad as to do that. The way things are going here, it stinks to high heaven. The Strategic Defence Review was badly costed. It didn't take into account inflation, the nuclear deterrent increase in costs, or of much needed increases to armed forces salaries. And at the same time that there's this £28 billion black hole, the government has all this spare cash to make by basically spending another 1.8 billion on digital ID, which nobody wants, and lifting the two-child benefit cap, which is forecast to cost 3 to 3.5 billion over the next few years. Their priorities are all wrong. They talk tough, like time and time again. They're not delivering for the British people. And of course, we are an embarrassment. You know, in 2021, but if you look at GDP, Britain was number 3 in the world for the amount of money it spent on its defence. Just four or 5 years later, we are now 12th in the world. It's an absolute dereliction of duty.
It most definitely is. I'm glad you mentioned the two-child benefit cap, which, as you say, will cost £3.5 billion a year. While so many of my viewers and listeners, Rafe, think carefully about how many kids they have, or indeed whether they can have kids at all, which, by the way, would be most young Brits these days. There's been a row between the Chancellor and the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, with the Chancellor saying that Nigel Farage is racist for deciding that actually he doesn't support the lifting of the two-child benefit cap because it would disproportionately go to immigrant families. Is it racist to put British people first?
No, I've got a new chapter coming out in a book next month in which I make the case that benefits should be restricted to British citizens. You know, citizenship should bring benefits quite literally. It's madness, of course. There's all this talk about stopping the pull factors for coming over to the United Kingdom, and yet, of course, one of the pull factors is once you get leave to remain here, you can start to receive benefits. It's absolute nonsense. As Nigel Farage correctly says, he's not being racist because, of course, if you are a British citizen and you're black or you're Asian, you will be entitled to benefits. But he's saying foreigners who are in this country should not be receiving this. And let's be clear here. What Labour has done, this is the most expensive bribe in history, that lifting the two-child benefit cap. This was a bribe, a bung to Labour's backbenchers to keep them on side with the Prime Minister. So this essentially is a £3 billion bribe to the backbenchers. I think it's absolutely indefensible. You know, Lammy wants to cut jury trials for some trials in the court service. The entire cost of the court service is 2.8 billion. You could double the court service with the amount of money they're spending, potentially 3 to 3.5 billion on the benefits cap. It's madness. It's completely indefensible. Nigel Farage, of course, isn't being racist. He's being sensible, and that's what we need.
Well, absolutely, and I'm so glad that you have said that, because what we're here to do on Talk for 2026 is to represent the genuine concerns of the British people, and that's something that I feel this government are at odds with. What about this story, Rafe? This will probably make you spit your tea out and your cornflakes. 2 men were told that they could not stay in their pre-booked rooms at a city centre hotel after being identified as homeless on a night when temperatures plunged to -6. Despite the rooms being paid for by a charity, the men were told by staff at the Holiday Inn Express in Manchester it did not allow homeless people to stay there. The rooms were booked by a charity called Two Brews. But despite volunteer Amanda Thompson accompanying the men to the hotel, she said the group were told the hotel will not allow them. It is company policy. Well, a Holiday Inn Express Manchester spokesperson has since apologised, saying the incident was not in keeping with our policy of welcoming all. We know what their mistake was, these homeless people, don't we, Rafe? They didn't come to the country on a dinghy.
Yeah, because after all, isn't everyone who comes on a dinghy homeless? I mean, we've had 41,000 homeless people come over the channel in the last year, after all. And once again, it seems to me this is a case quite simply of prioritising foreigners over British citizens. This goes right back to the last story, doesn't it? And just imagine, if those people had been turfed back onto the street and had died of hypothermia, for example. Look how cold it's been in recent days. This stinks to high heaven. It needs to be reviewed. And also, I just, on a slight tangent here, the Labour Party has made such a big deal of saying that they're going to try to close all the asylum hotels sooner. That doesn't solve the problem, because they're going from the hotels into private accommodation, which is just as bad. Personally, I'd rather have these illegal migrants in a golf course hotel far away on the outskirts of town, rather than in public housing on city streets, in town corners, next door to you, across from your child's school. We need to close all private accommodation and hotels and move them all into temporary refugee camps where they can be processed and deported. The Poles, when they were here after World War II, there were 250,000 of them. They lived for 10, 15 years in Polish resettlement camps. There is no excuse today to have these young men of fighting age in publicly funded private accommodation or hotels. They both have to close, and don't fall for Labour saying that they're going to be closing the hotels and that will be the solution. It's going to make things even worse.
Well, it is, and what you have to do is stop supply, and there seems that that's not going to happen anytime soon, given the fact that numbers have gone up since Keir Starmer entered 10 Downing Street. Last but not least, Rafe, let's talk about Storm Goretti, right? Storm Goretti garrots Britain with 99-mile-an-hour winds, snow across the country. The Midlands this morning in complete lockdown. This is another example, isn't it, Rafe, of Britain's crumbling infrastructure?
Yeah, I used to live in Canada. I spent 14 years in my late teens and early 20s living in Canada with temperatures of -40, snow about 4 foot high on occasion with the banks. They know how to deal with all of this. Much worse conditions than we endure in this country. It's terrible that places are in lockdown, power cuts and so forth. We do need to build resilience into our infrastructure, into the grid, and have proper ways of dealing with extreme weather. Extreme weather is the story of the day. We've got more extreme weather events now than we've in succession, and more records are broken in close succession than ever before. Doesn't seem as if we're yet up to the task, but it has been very windy. I destroyed an umbrella yesterday trying to walk in the evening.
I can just picture you now with your umbrella and your lovely tweed suits. You're a very, very, very elegant man, sartorially. Rafe, thank you for the truth bombs and the common sense. I look forward to catching up soon. My thanks to the brilliant broadcaster, historian and fellow at the New Culture Forum. A true gentleman he is, Rafe Hadel-Mancu. Just how bad are the storms out there? We've got an update next.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Very excited because at 23 minutes past 7 on a Friday morning here at Talk, we're welcoming in the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. You heard me right. We are giving away 26 grand. What better way to kick off 2026 than with a chance to win some serious cash? So 26 grand, it's our biggest New Year cash giveaway and it could be yours. It is 26k for 2026 and here's how to enter. For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text TALK to 83338. Text cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate or call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January 2026. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. This is for the UK only. 18s plus. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Good luck because I want you to win 26 grand. That would be handy, wouldn't it? In the cost of living crisis, I should cocoa. Well, folks, I've got to tell you that things have really kicked off out there with the Midlands proving to be in particular crisis in relation to the snowstorm that we have witnessed. Weather bomb hits Britain, says the newspaper. Rare risk to life warning and text alerts issued as Storm Goretti sweeps in, bringing snow and 100-mile-an-hour winds. How bad are things out there? Let's get the views now of the travel correspondent at the Independent newspaper, the legendary Simon Calder. Good morning, Simon.
Mark, yeah, I am so sorry for hundreds of thousands of people who are trying to use public transport or indeed flying away today who are simply facing absolute chaos. Shall we start on the trains, perhaps? Because
yes.
I think that's going to affect most of your listeners and viewers. So we got big problems happening, particularly in the Midlands, and there are cancellations, for instance, on most of the routes in and out of Nottingham until later in the morning. Cross Country Rail, which runs trains through its hub in Birmingham New Street, has cancelled or curtailed dozens of trains. The Peak District, if you're going to Buxton or on the line from Manchester to Sheffield, you're not going to be getting there today by train because they're all cancelled till tomorrow. And elsewhere, well, I think the first train since yesterday afternoon has finally made it into Cornwall, heading for Penzance, so things slightly improving there. But the picture, wherever you are, we've seen cancellations, for instance, on the number of lines in Wales and along the south coast. Check before you travel and don't be surprised if things are in disarray.
Yes, the weather's bad, Simon, but snow shouldn't really stop trains, should it?
Well, I was really interested in your discussion just now with Rafe, where he was saying, yeah, I was brought up in Canada, this sort of weather they wouldn't even blink at, of course. But it's all to do with how much as a country we invest in these things. So, yes, in Canada, they have, well, frankly, in winter, I've been there, it's largely unfit for human habitation. And so, therefore, they invest billions of dollars in making sure they can clear snow, keep the railways running, keep flights going. Here we don't normally get weather so extreme, and so Birmingham Airport, for instance, I'm sure if it were in Chicago they would have cleared the runway, but it's been closed now for 10 hours. A whole load of people flying in from Barbados, poor them, are now in Manchester wondering how they're going to get home because that flight was diverted. We saw lots of cancellations last night. The last flight into Birmingham that made it was the Boeing 777 Emirates from Dubai, and unfortunately they kept trying to take off but they couldn't. The runway was closed, so all those people who were boarding the flight hoping to get to sunnier destinations, they ended up staying in hotels, I hope, in the Birmingham airport area. We've also got, can you believe, Heathrow, 50 cancellations this morning. most of them on British Airways, short-haul domestic and European flights, plus cancellations on Aer Lingus, KLM, Air France and Scandinavian Airlines.
It's astonishing, isn't it? It can't be beyond the wit of man for one of the busiest airports in the world to clear their runways, but so be it. What about the... Go on, Simon.
I'm so sorry, Mark. If I can just explain what's going on there. Right.
Educate me, sir.
Sorry, forgive me.
No, definitely.
Look, here we have the situation. Britain has ridiculously insufficient infrastructure in key airports. Heathrow is the busiest 2-runway airport in the world. Gatwick is the busiest single runway airport. So if, as is happening at Heathrow, the air traffic controllers say, look, bad weather, we've got to increase the distance between flights, the only way you're going to do that, since the airport is effectively full, is to delete some flights from the schedules. And so I reckon 7,000 people are waking up to find out that they are not flying as they planned. It's just a reflection of the fact we make choices, and we didn't want to expand Heathrow, although maybe 10 years from now, you and I will be checking in and flying from the 3rd runway.
Well, I'm glad that you pointed that out. That's the context where runway capacity is an issue when the weather gets bad, Simon. That's why we love having you on the show, because you're an expert. Briefly, if you can, Simon, a quick word on the buses, because many would think, well, look, if I can't actually drive my own car, the trains are cancelled, then I'll get the bus. But even that's not an option for many people.
Oh, sure, yeah. Particularly in the Midlands, around Nottinghamshire, and indeed in Wales, there's some really treacherous roads. And of course, bus companies are not going to send out their excellent drivers and put them at risk, let alone passengers, if they believe that conditions are too bad. So right across the country, particularly in the Midlands, the message that's been going out is, if your journey isn't absolutely necessary, just stay at home and listen or watch talk.
Simon, we always love having you on the show. A true journalistic legend, travel correspondent of The Independent, Simon Calder, with not too much good news about Storm Goretti, which has seen 99-mile-an-hour winds and snow. 65,000 properties have lost power. Tell me about your experience of the weather. The Midlands is in borderline lockdown, I've got to say. What a disaster. Let me know what you're going through. Steve says, Mark, it's the trains, right, that you're talking about. Don't forget, the reason why they're not running is the wrong type of snow. Didn't you realise? And also this from an unnamed texter. Good morning, Mark. The BBC reporting the worst snow in a decade, followed by a quote of 3 centimetres in Nottingham. When did we become so pathetic? There's no wonder young people have no resilience at all. It's embarrassing. Sharon says the big freeze this country is going through is really to do with a failure of infrastructure. Absolute garbage. No upgrade at all. Same old infrastructure since I can remember. Yet other countries that are poorer than the UK will see their infrastructure invested in and improved, including Poland. Thank you so much for that, Sharon. Is it racist to place the British people first when it comes to state resources? We'll discuss that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:33, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Coming up at 9 o'clock, we'll discuss whether it's racist to put British people first in relation to the allocation of state resources. Plus, Layla Cunningham, the mayoral candidate for Reform UK, joins us live on the show very shortly indeed. But now, from College Green, I hope he's got his mittens on and a hat and a scarf, Andrew Griffiths, MP, the Conservative MP and Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Good morning, Mr. Griffiths.
Good morning, Mark. Always good to be on the home of common sense.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for braving the elements to join us. This would, by my calculations, be Labour's 12th U-turn in 18 months, with the Chancellor expected to climb down on her proposed increase in business rates on pubs. Your reaction?
Well, look, this is a measure that she only introduced 6 weeks ago. I mean, so the Treasury just behind me are spinning like a top. They just can't get anything right. But let's be really clear, this is an issue that's much bigger than pubs. So if it would help pubs who are really seeing some absolutely horrific increases in their business rates, all to the good. But what about hotels? What about restaurants? When does a pub turn into a gastropub, turn into a restaurant? And what about all of the other businesses? Business rates is a really difficult tax. It's a fixed cost before you've made any revenue or profit. And I just think this government, Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer, the whole bunch of them, just don't understand business, because they pile on red tape, they've put on the unemployment bill, they've put up the cost of hiring anybody. In the previous budget, there were all those national insurance hikes, and then along comes their next attack through business rates. They don't understand business. They don't care about people who are working hard, the strivers, and businesses and pubs make a huge contribution to our communities. So U-turn, but do a proper U-turn. Do what, for example, the Conservatives have long called for, which is take most retail, hospitality and leisure businesses out of business rates entirely, because our high streets aren't what they once were, and we're on the side of communities and of people who are trying to do the right thing.
Do you think this Labour government has a cultural blind spot about the importance of pubs in our communities?
Yeah, and I think it actually goes much beyond that. They don't value the people that create the wealth in this country. They're making changes, putting up taxes on those who strive, who work hard, who get up early in the morning, so that they can increase benefits for those who've had larger families. It's a blind spot on business, it's a blind spot on pubs, but it's a blind spot on the people who get up in the morning and go to work.
Now, you mentioned the issue of benefits for families, and Nigel Farage has decided that he would not support the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap if he was Prime Minister. He would reinstate it because he's concerned that this benefit, which is a great cost to the Treasury of £3 to £3.5 billion a year, would predominantly favour immigrant families. Is he racist to point that out?
Look, I don't think it's about the colour of anyone's skin. I mean, this has always been Conservative policy, to be clear, that because we're on the side of people who do the right thing, every family, particularly those who go to work, have to make choices about what they can afford, have to make ends meet. The two-child benefit cap is a fair policy to taxpayers who are picking up the bill, who are doing one or often two jobs or trying to keep a business alive. It's not right if people are making more money on benefits or are able to simply afford bigger families on benefits than those who get up and go to work. So I don't think it's about racism. I don't think it's about the colour of people's skin. We value the contribution, if it's positive to society, that anybody makes. But we've always been clear, as the Conservative Party now and in the future, that it's right to cap benefits, to make sure people have an incentive to work and to be fair to the taxpayers who are struggling to make ends meet themselves.
Mr. Griffiths, you're not one for a cheap headline or woke identity politics, but it does appear to be something of a double standard on the part of Rachel Reeves, who's, of course, the Labour Chancellor, that she implies Nigel Farage is racist by suggesting that, we need a national conversation about whether, Brits get the majority of benefits. But she herself implied in an interview reported by The Guardian that you had to be white to be British.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'm not after cheap headlines. I don't think this is an edifying topic for anybody, but it is about values. And there are some real values here about, if you're part of a society, are you contributing? Are you willing to integrate? Are you making respect for the traditions of that society? And I'd agree with many that all of those are under threat. But the way you tackle that is by restoring fairness. That's why the Conservatives are willing to make. I think we're the only party really willing to make tough choices on welfare. We've identified billions of pounds of savings on welfare from getting people back into work, and then we'll reward those values of thrift, of making a contribution to the society that you live in. This government is taking us completely in the wrong direction. Think about who they're attacking: pensioners, farmers, small business people, and those that get up, go to work, try and do the right thing, respect the laws of the land. And this government, again and again, it depresses me beyond words, is on the wrong side.
Most definitely. I mean, Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, he doesn't want to scrap the two-child benefit cap. Now, that's a bit of a Nigel Farage U-turn, which I've got no doubt you will call out. But he said he was concerned that the benefit would go towards huge numbers of foreign-born people. Well, the Chancellor retorted saying that this is racist, this is about supporting white people. She said, I don't care what people's skin colour is. That would imply that the Chancellor thinks you've got to be white to be British.
Well, look, I mean, my issue with the Chancellor is manifold.
By Rachel
it's the damage that's being done.
Was that a racist thing to say?
Well, it's the damage. It's the damage being done to the economy, and the fact that she's spending other people's money. It is a fact that there are large parts of we're here in London that people can't afford to live on a wage, but they're having their housing and their lifestyles paid for by benefits. Now, I don't think that's right. I want a society in which you work hard, you get on, a smaller state, and a state that works for you. Not against you.
We've had some great noises from the Conservatives on the economy since the election. There's been lots of humble pie consumed, a few mea culpas, and a bold new direction. It seems to be working, Mr. Griffiths. Your leader is a commanding figure at Prime Minister's questions now in her budget response as well. It does seem like the party's got its mojo back to a certain degree. Do you regret, though, that in the course of 14 years of Tory rule, that foreign-born Brits have received a larger slice of the pie than perhaps they should have?
Look, I regret a lot of things, if I'm completely honest. There were mistakes, and the Conservative Party has been very clear under previous leadership. There were things both that we did that we shouldn't have done, and things that when we had the chance we could. Now, I don't have a TARDIS. I don't have the ability to time travel. You are right. The Conservative Party is focused laser-like on the economy. People like myself and others have got strong backgrounds in business, so we understand what we're talking about when we're talking about things like removing the burden of business rates on literally hundreds of thousands of small businesses across the country. They are the ones who are trying to do the right thing. We understand that. I think we are the party that understands that the most. And the next election is going to be about the economy. Every day we're seeing statistics about how unemployment is rising. It's the hardest time for young people to get a job ever since statistics began. House price market is down, the construction level of construction in the country. Every day you see these things, and people know that anyway. They don't need a whole barrage of statistics. They walk down their high street, they talk to their local pub, they hear what's going on in a restaurant, a hotel, a small business. That is what I think we're going to fix. This is a wonderful country with wonderful people, hugely entrepreneurial, but we've got to fix some things, and that's where I think the Conservative Party can really deliver real value to this nation.
Well, I think it's really brilliant and very interesting what's happening on the right in this country with a certainly more confident leader of the opposition now, and of course Nigel Farage ahead in the polls. Before we let you go, Mr. Griffiths, I just want to drill down on this point. Do you feel that the Conservatives in 14 years took their eye off the ball in terms of prioritising British people, just when it comes to, you know, the allocation of state resources, whether it's social housing or benefits? Do you think that there was the recalibration was wrong over the last 14 years about Brits being front of the queue? Would you acknowledge that point?
Look, the Conservatives are at their best when we stick to strong Conservative principles. In many ways, the principles of the Conservative Party that I joined many, many years ago under Mrs. Thatcher. She put pride back in our country, and there was no doubt which side she was on. She was on the side of people who worked hard, who made a positive contribution to society, and in many cases, you know, that is people who've been here for generations, who've worked hard, who've built businesses, for example, family businesses or family farms, or people who've paid into their pension all their life and deserve their benefits in retirement. That's who we are on now. And that's who, when we're at our best, we're on the side.
And therefore, yes or no, would Brits First be an appropriate Conservative slogan going forward?
Well, as I say, you keep pushing, and you know, to me, it's about the contribution you make in society. You know, do you come here? Do you do the right thing? Do you pay your way? Do you not take out more than you put in? And are you prepared to adopt the values and culture of the society that you've chosen to live in? I think that's a perfectly reasonable basis. That, coupled with tough borders, a fair and firm immigration scheme, is how we should go. And if we lost sight of that in the past, that was wrong. But the Conservative Party is very clear now. Stronger economy, stronger borders, stronger country. That's what we're about.
Andrew, a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for dealing with the weather whilst broadcasting to the nation. Very interesting points you've had to make. Andrew Griffiths, MP, is the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's have a look now at 46 minutes past 7 on a Friday morning at the state of Britain's prisons, with a recruitment drive to make the job more attractive of being a prison officer. I'm delighted to welcome, for reaction on this story, Vanessa Frake, who is a former prison governor and Reform UK advisor. Vanessa, good to have you on the show. Happy New Year. Will this drive to attract people to work in prisons work?
Good morning, Mark, and Happy New Year to you. Look, it's something that the MOJ has got to do. We can't recruit. The prison service has the worst retention rates of all our public services. You know, overcrowding, violence, drugs, corruption, etc., is driving up our exit rates of prison officers. We've had to recruit from foreign countries, Nigeria, Zambia, in order to fill our spaces and try and run our prisons. But I think the MOJ needs to make the job much more attractive. When you think that you can apply to join when you're 17 and start on your 18th birthday, You know, we're putting vulnerable young people into situations that they haven't had the training, the life experience for. You know, they're building all these prison places, and they've got to be staffed somehow. And the problem is that the people who are staffing them are inexperienced, and that causes its own problems.
Is it a good job in 2026? Would you encourage friends and family members to sign up?
In its current state, no, I wouldn't. And
well, that is damning from a former prison governor that you're saying do not work in this institution.
I don't think any government has given the staff the correct training, the correct support, the correct wages to warrant going into a very violent institution and trying to run with overcrowding, with drugs, with mobiles. You know, 10,500 assaults on staff up to September last year. I just don't think it is. And that actually saddens me to say, Mark, because, you know, I love my job. I do think it's a worthwhile career for the right person. But the way that the prison service has been, you know, just ignored over the past 20 years, and we are now reaping what we sow.
Most definitely. And of course, it's not just as a result of this Labour government. This is institutional failure, perhaps for decades, and underinvestment. And it breaks my heart, Vanessa, that you say that you would likely not recommend loved ones entering the profession at the moment, given the dangers that prison guards, prison officers face on a daily basis. Things won't change under a Reform UK government, though, will they? Because this is going to take billions, and this is billions the country just hasn't got.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's no skirting around the periphery here, Mark.
Mm.
You know, it is going to take money, but I think you have to look at the wider picture. And for me, you know, there are very few whole life sentence prisoners. And the majority of prisoners will come back out into our communities, and surely we want safer communities. And at the moment, you know, the rehabilitation that our prisons offer at the moment is just not good enough. We're turning out better criminals, not reformed criminals, and it's a very worrying state of affairs all round, to be honest.
How can Reform UK improve the prison service without the money?
Now that's the $64,000.
I bet Richard Tice has asked you that question a few times over a coffee.
Oh,
He's like, I'm so
done.
sorry, Vanessa, there won't really be any cash. So how are we going to do this?
Look, I mean, all our public sectors are struggling. You know, I'm not naive enough to think that, you know, people want to spend their hard-earned taxes on criminals and rehabilitation. They'd much rather it go to education and the NHS. But as I said, at the end of the day, these people are going to come back into our communities. And if we want safer communities, less crime in our communities, then we have got to tackle the rehabilitation of prisoners.
Most definitely. Your leader, Nigel Farage, has decided to reinstate the two-child benefit cap if he becomes Prime Minister, which the polling suggests he will, Vanessa. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has claimed that this is racist because Mr. Farage is concerned about how many of those benefits, the two-child benefit cap being lifted, will go to immigrant families. Is it racist, the position of your leader?
Look, Nigel is quite clear on it. Of course, the two-child benefit it highlights different families, different cultures, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, like I actually agreed with your previous guest when he said that you know, I don't mind people coming over here and contributing to our society. It's those that don't. But you know, there's plenty of other races that don't contribute as well.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Most definitely, although it was certainly a concern on the part of Mr. Farage, the idea, you know, the precious state resources going disproportionately, you know, whether it's child benefits to children and families, whether it's social housing, a disproportionate slice of the pie going to people that have come to this country not born here. I couldn't get a straight answer from Andrew Griffiths, who is the shadow business secretary, when I said, is it an appropriate slogan to say Brits first? Do you think Brits first is an appropriate political slogan? Because he wouldn't agree that it was.
Well, look, many people are British. You know, I'm half American myself, but I consider myself British. So, you know, I think we have to be very, very careful how we land that. You know, just because you're not born in this country doesn't necessarily make you not British. I think the most important thing is that you contribute to
most definitely not. But is there a conversation to be had about which resources folks that were born here get versus those who weren't?
Well, I don't know. Look, Mark, this isn't really my bag. My bag is justice, and
of course,
you know, that's a conversation that you need to probably have with Nigel and Richard. But you know, I think we have to be very careful as to how we divide up our society. God knows it's already divided enough.
Most definitely, and I think what's important is that we at least have a national conversation about it, which Nigel Farage has sparked. By the way, a bit unfortunate for the Chancellor, though, aside from that issue, Vanessa, because she implied that you have to be white to be British, because she said, well, Nigel Farage is racist and he basically wants benefits to go to white people. But his position is, no, I want benefits to go to people born in this country. The Chancellor has implied that you've got to be white to be British. That's a bit ironic, isn't it, from the left, who accuse everyone else of racism?
Well, you know, Rachel Reeves is... I'm not quite sure she thought about that before she opened her mouth, quite frankly. And, you know, that it's a bit of a foot in mouth moment, isn't it?
I think it is. I think it is. By the way, can we talk about the SNP as well, Vanessa? Because we know, of course, that the issue about gender self-ID pretty much ended the political career of Nicola Sturgeon up in Scotland. Well, there's a new development, which is that the SNP have launched a secret legal bid to keep biological men in women's prisons by forcing a change to the Equality Act. The Scottish Government is fighting a court battle with a feminist campaign group over its policy of allowing trans women to be housed in female jails in certain circumstances. 4 Women Scotland argue this is incompatible with last year's Supreme Court ruling that the definition of a woman in the Act is based on biological sex. The SNP won't let this go. If it's not a silly question at 5 minutes to 8 on a Friday morning, why is it a problem for biological males to be accommodated in a female prison?
Well, I think, you know, you have to look at the genre of female prisoners. A lot of them have been abused, usually by males. The court ruling is quite clear. I don't really see how the SNP can argue themselves around that. It's a difficult one. It's a minefield, but the court was quite clear on the outcome of what a biological female or male is.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate, isn't it, that many of the institutions of this country didn't get the memo that there are 2 biological sexes, and that is now enforceable under British law as a result of that Supreme Court verdict.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, institutions, hospitals, prisons, etc., need to knuckle down and you know, agree with the law. But it is a minefield. You know, you are going to upset people, whichever way round you have an opinion on it. It is a difficult one, though. You know, we had trans prisoners both at Holloway and at Wormwood Scrubs.
Yeah, right.
And the most important thing is to protect women in female prisons. That's the most important thing, because, you know, that has to be the number one priority.
It most definitely should. Vanessa, I really enjoyed your company this morning, and thank you for allowing me to lead you down a political path once or twice. I thought you handled it very well indeed. Before I let you go, should we just take this moment to big up people that work in prisons. They're brave, they're not paid enough, they risk their life on a daily basis, and their work is incredibly important. Shall we just give them a big, massive thumbs up and a round of applause for what they do every day?
Absolutely, Mark. Couldn't agree with you more. Prison officers see things on a daily basis most people don't see in a lifetime. And they have to deal with mental health. They have to deal with suicide, self-harm, and violence. And yes, above all, let's give them a big thumbs up and round of applause. And they deserve much better from our governments.
Vanessa, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. The dog doesn't sound happy, by the way. Is it walkies?
Yes, she's telling me it's time. Sorry.
Does it? Get that lead out. It might be snowing, but she needs a walk around the block. Vanessa, really enjoyed this conversation. Please join us again very soon. Fascinating debate there with Vanessa Frake, who is a former prison governor and a reform advisor, who said she couldn't really, in all conscience, advise her loved ones to enter the prison service right now. On the weather, by the way, what has happened to this country? Storm Garotti garots Britain. Here's a voice note from Big Michael.
Got up this morning thinking, I'll have the day off, get the sledge out, the kids, we can go and play in the snow. And I woke up this morning, 6 o'clock, just to take my dog out, and there's nothing, not one snowflake. No wind, no rain, it's a balmy 5 degrees, and I'm sitting here now disappointed. I mean, really disappointed that we didn't get to see any weather. Maybe the weather people can be less dramatic and regionalise the weather rather than say the whole country is gonna suffer. Anyway, there you go. At least I won't slip over and fall.
Just brilliant. Michael, common sense on the home of common sense. Is Britain first and Brits first a politically appropriate slogan? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
3 minutes past 8, top of the morning, one and all. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. A new year means a brand new schedule, and going forward, I'm delighted to be your host every Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And my priority for the duration of this new year of ours is to get your opinions, your concerns and your worries on the national radio and television airwaves. And breaking this morning, the 12th U-turn in 18 months by this Labour government, with the Chancellor expected to climb down on her plans to raise business rates in hospitality. But is it too little too late? And with proposed changes to the drink-drive limit, which will destroy rural locals, why do this government seem to hate pubs so much? Meanwhile, the Chancellor blasts Nigel Farage over his decision to reinstate the two-child benefit cap if he becomes Prime Minister. His concern, it would disproportionately go to immigrant families. But is it racist to put British taxpayers first? And I had a very interesting debate with Andrew Griffiths, who is, of course, a member of the Shadow Cabinet, a Conservative MP. He is the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. And I said to him, is it an appropriate political slogan to say Brits first? He was non-committal, so let me know what you think. Is it appropriate to have a political slogan that says Brits first? 0344 499 1000 is my number. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Reform UK's mayoral hopeful in London, Layla Cunningham, joins us on the show shortly, as well as Tory grandee Sir Michael Fabricant. Let's have a look at the front pages at 5 minutes past 8. The Daily Telegraph, Rachel Reeves to climb down on pub tax, and Britain shuts down ahead of snow bomb. Britain started to shut down last night after Storm Goretti made landfall. A life-threatening weather bomb brought winds of up to 100 miles an hour to the southwest, whilst 1 feet of snow was forecast for parts of Wales, the Midlands and South Yorkshire. Storm Goretti has garrotted Britain. Can you tell me how you're dealing with the weather? Has it affected your travel plans? Are you able to get to work? Are you able to get your kids to school? Let me know your situation. 0344 499 1000. The I newspaper, Putin's shadow fleet in UK waters as ministers pledge to use hard power. We've got the Daily Express. Cheers, it's yet another too late U-turn from the Prime Minister. Plans to ease huge business rate rises on pubs are too little too late, says the paper. The Sun newspaper, drama in the Beckham household. Send writ like Beckham. Brooklyn Beckham, who's the eldest of the clan, sent his parents, David and Victoria, a legal notice warning that they can now only contact him via lawyers. Who's paying for those lawyers, by the way? I think you might find it's David and Victoria Beckham. Daily Mirror, exclusive, freeloader Farage. Where's Wally? Angering Clacton after their MP's latest overseas jaunt, a freebie in Abu Dhabi. Nigel Farage blasted for ignoring his day job after jetting to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Of course, the Mirror were very quiet when it was revealed that a billionaire Labour donor paid for the Prime Minister's spectacles, his suits and his tickets to Arsenal, but very vocal on Farage. Funny that. Daily Mail, pub U-turn is too little too late. And The Guardian, who have got the knives out for the Reform UK leader as well. Go back home. Now 34 ex-pupils accuse Farage of racist behaviour. Let's get reaction to all the big stories of the day in the company of Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning, Isabel, and Happy New Year.
Good morning. I'm feeling a bit jealous, actually, because I absolutely love snow. And apparently there's masses of it in the UK at the moment, and more to come.
Most definitely. But the Midlands, for example, is in borderline lockdown as a result. Cancelled trains, cancelled buses, the motorways in gridlock. This is proof, if you needed it, of crumbling Britain, isn't it? And years, decades of underinvestment in our infrastructure.
Well, I think it's proof that it's a brilliant thing that it's Friday, and it sounds like an amazing excuse to not do any work at all and to try and find a sledge if you've got one somewhere. I mean, the truth is we don't get that much snow, do we? We've had a sledge, maybe even 2 or 3 sledges in our cellar in Oxfordshire for years now, and have not had the chance to use them. So I hope that people at least have some fun. And you know, extreme weather, it doesn't take much to tip our crumbling infrastructure over the edge, does it? You don't need anything like that level of snowfall for there to be a problem because it's too cold or too hot or too windy or too wet. I don't know. This is all just normal. And I think, you know, just before Christmas, Mark, just talking about crumbling infrastructure, I walked into a garden centre in Oxfordshire, and it's one of those modern garden centres which is not really that much about plants. There's a lot of other things going on there that aren't plant related, cafes and associated shops. The whole place was in darkness, and I was like, what's going on here? And it turned out that the entire area had no electricity for the whole day, and basically all those local businesses had lost a day of trading in the run up to Christmas. They were in the process of closing the garden centre because it was just too cold and dark. And this is modern Britain.
Most definitely. We've had underinvestment in infrastructure under various governments of political colours, Tory and Labour and coalition alike. Now, this is decades in the making, isn't it? We don't have reservoirs, we've got polluted rivers. It would be nice to have a couple of gritting lorries and a couple of snowplows, but no. The country shuts down. Enormous cost to the economy, of course, Isabel. Do you think that infrastructural spending should be taken out of the sphere of politics?
Well, that is a tricky question, isn't it? Because then you get into the whole kind of net zero debate and whether or not spending on power infrastructure should be out of the realms of politics. I mean, you and I and most of our listeners are probably going to agree on the insanity of where that's all got us. But one thing's for sure, we are in a sorry state. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me that we have these annual hosepipe bans in the south of England. I live in an actual desert here in the UAE, and there's never a hose. No one has ever said to me, "Oh, watch how much water you use. You know, you can't have any irrigation in your little garden. You can't have a long shower." That simply isn't a thing in high functioning countries. It certainly shouldn't be a thing when the rain is constantly pouring down and we have lots of lakes and natural water sources.
Most definitely. Front page of the Telegraph, Isabel. Reeves to climb down on pub tax. Rachel Reeves is preparing to reverse her decision to impose higher costs on Britain's struggling pubs following a Telegraph campaign. The Chancellor is understood to be finalising plans to offer relief to venues facing the biggest increase in business rates. I think the relief amounts to around £300 million. For struggling pubs and restaurants, that's not even going to touch the sides, is it?
I mean, that is an absolutely infinitesimal amount. And, I think so many voters are bewildered by the priorities of this government. They seem to be able to find literally billions to throw at asylum seekers and welfare claimants that could actually be doing a hard day's work. And yet when it comes to actually supporting the very heart of our communities, and pubs are so important for that, you've got this kind of penny pinching around the sides and indeed policy making that is actually likely to drive already struggling small businesses to over the cliff edge. It is extraordinary. It wouldn't take that much to rescue those businesses, and yet the government goes in the opposite direction. You're left wondering, what kind of Britain do they actually want?
Most definitely. Do you think that the left and this Labour movement have a blind spot in regards to the importance of pubs? Not just because it's a commercial enterprise and this government seems to hate business, but just the idea of your friendly local. They don't seem to get it.
Mark, I think they've got a blind spot about everything. I mean, where is their sharp-sightedness on anything that most of us care about? I just think they don't get it about so much of this stuff.
They don't get it with the farmers aspirational families with kids in private school, they don't get it with the pensioners freezing in their homes last winter?
What they really don't get is the countryside, and that has long been a problem for the Labour Party. They are an urban party. They don't understand. You know, I live in a lovely village in the Cotswolds. We're lucky enough to have 3 thriving pubs in our community, and it has massively revitalised our very small town. It's not a village. And one of the reasons that we've got all 3 pubs is because the very wealthy Bamford family rode to the rescue of one of them. That's the JCB family. And they took over a pub that had been derelict for years just because it just wasn't economically viable. And no one could afford to buy the premises. And they injected a load of resources into it. They did it very fast and efficiently, and it is now a beautiful pub in the heart of the town, and it attracts lots of lots of outsiders to the village. And that has a wonderful effect. I mean, not great on parking, of course, but it injects life into other local businesses.
Meanwhile, Isabel, another story in the Telegraph, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has told ministers to make cuts in various departments to fund his digital ID scheme. We were hoping that this story was going to go away, but sadly not. An estimated cost of £1.8 million for a policy that wasn't in the manifesto, and a policy that many of my viewers and listeners do not want because of the precedent it sets in terms of individual civil liberties.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought up this story, because I was sort of pretty dismayed to see an advertisement. Now, the general public can't see this job advert because it's on an internal civil servants only job portal. And I was sent, I think it was probably on social media, doing the rounds on social media. There was an advert for an £80,000 a year new role as a sort of senior figure in this digital ID card scheme. Now, not only would you get 80 grand a year on this for this role, you also get a pension contribution from the state of 28%. You know, that kind of pension. I don't think many of our viewers and listeners are benefiting from those kind of state contributions. Quite extraordinary. So then I thought, well, if they're advertising one job like this, I wonder how many other jobs there are. And it turns out I can reveal that there are 3 roles being advertised on similar salaries with similar perks. This for a scheme that I suspect will never get off the ground. Now, you and I might have differing views about the potential merits of some form of better ID scheme, because there is so much so much abuse of so many aspects of our welfare state. But I have no confidence in this government to run anything properly. And I don't think, given the absolute outcry from literally millions of voters over ID cards, I just can't see it happening.
Most definitely. And I'm particularly worried about it. I'm happy to have a conversation about how we identify ourselves, how we get access to benefits, as you say. But given how illiberal and censorious and authoritarian this government have become, they are the worst people to roll out such a policy. Don't forget, this is the same Prime Minister that championed those ruinous COVID lockdowns and wanted more. Can you imagine if there was, God forbid, another pandemic under this Labour government? Isabel, we need to talk about a conversation I just had with Andrew Griffiths, who is the shadow Business and Trade Secretary of Conservative MP, of course. And it was in relation to a U-turn on the part of the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage. So if he becomes Prime Minister, as you know, Isabel, he will reinstate the 2-child benefit cap, because he looked at the numbers and he realised that this benefit would disproportionately advantage foreign-born people living in this country, people that have come to the country as immigrants. And so I asked Andrew Griffiths what he thought, and he's on board with Farage's position. It is the Tories as well that would reinstate the 2-child benefit cap. But he wouldn't be led on whether we need a national conversation about the allocation of state resources in relation to people born in this country versus those not. And it's a conversation that Reform UK seem happy to have.
Yes, I think Reform UK makes no apology for saying that people who are born in the UK, whatever their skin colour, and we can come to that because
Yes.
Rachel has really talked a lot of nonsense about that, people who are born in the UK should be prioritised for certain benefits. And that approach is well backed by data on the type of people who would, if you like, lose out if reform were to go down the route that it's suggesting. And I'm just looking, the reason I keep looking down is because I'm just looking at the actual analysis of the data here. According to Labour's own analysis, just 0.8% of those benefiting from lifting the two-child benefit cap are children of British workers. So
with Andrew Griffiths about that policy, and it's now the policy of Reform UK and the Conservatives to reinstate the two-child benefit cap. I said, is it appropriate to have a political slogan along the lines of Brits First? He wouldn't be led on that. I've got lots of viewers and listeners who are really shocked that he wouldn't. Mark has messaged the show and said Andrew Griffiths would not commit to Brits First when you pushed him. That's the difference between the Tories and Reform UK. Do you think it's an appropriate slogan, Brits First, or would you say it's divisive, which is clearly the concern of Andrew Griffiths?
Yeah, of course I wouldn't say that. You know, your contributor there just took the words out of my mouth. That is the difference between Reform and the Tories. I have no problem whatsoever saying that British people should come first in Britain. And if you look at countries that manage to make multiculturalism, if you like, work, they are countries in which they are very clear that those who are born and bred, if you like, in that country are prioritised. And there are certain perks and advantages for those citizens. And I think incomers, I class myself as one of those. I'm sitting here in the Middle East as an incomer. I don't expect to have the same benefits or perks or advantages as those who were born here. I think I would consider that astonishingly arrogant if I thought I could just waltz into someone else's country and be treated as an equal. No, I consider myself to be inferior to those people that were born here in terms of the way the machinery of the state would treat me. And I have no problem with that. And I just think it's stunningly arrogant to think that you can move to someone else's country and expect all the same things as those whose heritage is there and those who have always paid into the system. And this is absolutely nothing to do with race. And that is where the Chancellor has got herself into an absolute pickle.
Well, we need to call this out because the left find racism everywhere except when it stares them in the mirror. The Chancellor explicitly implied that you have to be white to be British because she said that Nigel Farage's preference for a two-child benefit cap is racist because it would go to Brits only. She equated that with skin colour. Her clear message, you've got to be white to be British. Isabel Oakeshott at 21 minutes past 8 in the morning, that is a racist statement.
Well, I don't think she meant it, actually, in fairness to her.
I think she said the true bit out loud. I think the mask slipped.
No, I don't think she meant it like that. But what I do think it shows you is just how asinine these left-wingers are, because all they've got to reach for is the race card each and every time. Guys, people aren't buying into this anymore. That is why parties like Reform are picking up so much support. We're fed up of being insulted with this pathetic race-baiting rhetoric all the time. It doesn't wash anymore. And she has now been hoisted by her own petard on this.
Most definitely. Isabel, I look forward to many conversations in the course of 2026. My thanks to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Folks, is it an appropriate political slogan to say Brits first? The Tories don't think so. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Your call's next.
you can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I
This
haven't
is
got
not one.
time. Tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The Shadow Business Secretary speaking on this show just a few minutes ago would not accept the idea of Brits First as a political slogan. I said, is that something you could get behind? He was non-committal. Big reaction online. Lee in Market Harborough says, Mark, your guest would not answer your Brits First question, and that says it all. 14 years of nothing, now won't commit to anything. The Uni Party are all the same. Chris in Newbury, Mark, the Tories can't change. A Tory MP thinks you're trying to trick him into saying British people first, as if it's a slur he daren't say. That's why they are finished. Great show, says Steve. Andrew Griffiths seems like a good guy, but like all the Uni Party lot, far too frightened to say something real. Great that you pushed him, Mark. Keep up the good work. That's something I'll be doing for the course of 2026, is holding public figures to account. Paul is in Brighton. Good morning, Paul.
Yeah, good morning, Mark.
I'm really glad that you called the show, because I want to have a conversation with my audience today and ask whether it's appropriate to have a political slogan which is Brits First. I think it is. What say you?
Well, the actual term Brits could be considered to be a little bit divisive. But let's face it, if you have a British passport, you are British.
Correct.
So therefore, I believe the slogan should be tax-paying Brits and businesses first.
Yeah.
Because a problem in this country, and as you mentioned earlier with earlier guests, our government just do not understand the fact that businesses and they seem to think they've got the money tree. They don't generate the money. People who work, who pay taxes, and businesses create the money to pay for benefits, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a business. He's never run a business. Peter Card, he's my local MP. If you check his CV, the job he did before he was an MP was running a charity. Well, no doubt that was a government-funded quango he was running. The guy's never run a business.
Yeah.
We need people with business acumen to be business secretaries, and this government just do not get it. They don't understand the nature of how businesses generate money.
Like Paul, of unemployment, we've got sticky inflation, which was 2% and is now close to 4%. We've got anemic growth and growing debt. The policies aren't working because they're anti-business.
Exactly, and one thing I think that should be focused on more by your good selves at Talk, the construction industry. It's almost on its knees at the moment. House builders are not building. Houses are not selling because there's no confidence in the economy. And if people are being taxed all the time, they're not going to have the money to invest in new properties and move. Construction is a major part of this country. Then there's so many offshoots of that. If houses are selling, furniture's selling. People are having curtains and carpets, and if builders are making money, they will be spending money in pubs and restaurants. Construction is such a major part, but I don't think you're focusing enough on that. And certainly, the government say they're going to build 300,000 houses a year. That's just not going to happen. The construction industry is on its knees at the moment, and there's no because we are being taxed so much.
So you think we should talk more about what's happening in the construction industry? Clearly a big impact, or you've got a few things, the national insurance tax raid. You've also got anti-business policies which kill the economy. When you've got a bad economy, there's less construction sites commissioned. What are the other issues facing the construction industry? Inflation, obviously a big one.
Yeah, inflation, material prices have gone up dramatically. I know developers are struggling. The Labour government say they relax planning issues, but I'm afraid the local authorities are full of people who are full of their own self-importance, and they're not relaxing planning regulations at all. They just love they love their own authority. That's a big problem. Another big problem in the construction industry, and you can check your facts, the biggest number of companies that are going into liquidation are involved in construction, whether they're main contractors or subcontractors. It's a major problem, and that's another issue that needs looking at. And if their business secretary knew anything about business, he would look into the fact of how construction companies work on a 30-day cycle. In other words, imagine you start a job on the 1st of the month. You wait 30 days before you can put in a payment application, and then you have to wait a further 30 days to get paid. In effect, you're funding a project for 60 days. This is not sustainable for many businesses, and it's something that should be addressed.
Paul, I'm so glad that you called me, and I'm so glad that you've asked me to look at the construction industry, which is central to our economy, central to the future of this country, because housing and office space and all construction projects are part of the critical infrastructure of this country. It's a big employer, and the builders do amazing work day in, day out in all weathers. You've got roofers out today in, blizzard conditions. So, Paul, let's keep this conversation going, and I will definitely prioritise construction as an industry of concern in this country. Like so many sectors of this country, this economy, they've been absolutely obliterated. Is it good news for the pubs now? Daily Telegraph, Rachel Reeves to climb down on pub tax. Let's get reaction from someone at the coalface. Steve Perez is the landlord of the Red Lion and Peak Edge in Chesterfield. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you with us this morning. First of all, a quick weather update. Looks like you've got snow as well.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of snow up here. Yeah, the roads are covered. In fact, we can't even open this morning, until the roads are better. And
what I'm hearing, Steve, in regard to this alleged U-turn on the part of the government is too little too late. You're looking at 300 million's worth of tax relief for the most distressed businesses. That's not going to touch the sides, is it?
Well, we're going to have to wait for the detail, but all the talk at the moment is all about pubs. It's a little bit like the farmers. Pubs are close to people's hearts, and my fear is that the government are going to tinker around the edges, and hopefully for them they'll expect it to go away. But it's a far bigger issue. It's not just pubs, it's hotels, it's cafes, it's music venues, it's nightclubs. We've all been hit by this huge rates increase. I'll just give you a really interesting example. Now, I have a drinks business, Global Brands, and I have a huge warehouse, 150,000 square feet. My rates at the warehouse have gone up by 6%, which is fair enough. I accept that. I also have some lovely offices where I employ about 80 people. The rates have actually gone down by 6% in the offices, whereas my pubs have gone up by 70% and the hotel 115%. Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. We already pay the highest property tax in the world. And on top of that, we pay the highest VAT in the whole of Europe. I don't know what it is about this government, but and the previous government as well. They just don't get hospitality. We employ lots of young people. We contribute to the billions and billions of pounds, so 60 billion pounds in terms of taxes. We're the third biggest employer in the UK. We don't even have a hospitality minister.
No, and by the way, one big concern I've got about hospitality, whether it's restaurant, cafes or pubs, is that they are critical social infrastructure of this country, a big part of the economy. And here's the other big one, Steve. Pubs, restaurants, bars, cafes, big employers of young people.
Yeah. And it's really sad because I really want to employ young people. But the difficulty with employ young people, we have to go through a training process. Young people can't always work the same sort of longer hours as older people. And we're now having to make a very difficult decision, which is going to be perhaps having to employ less young people, because if you look at the minimum wage, it's almost £27,000 a year. So at £27,000 a year, for maybe £29,000, £30,000, we can employ somebody older with experience.
Yeah.
And these young people aren't going to get the Saturday jobs, aren't going to get this experience of life, when we leave school.
And the work ethic.
Oh, exactly. And, and so many people. The great thing is about working in hospitality is that you learn to mix with different kinds of people. When you sat at home, you mix with your parents and your teachers, and I see young people come on so well when they spend time in hospitality.
Most definitely. Steve, before we let you go, tell us about the Red Lion and Peak Edge in Chesterfield, your lovely pub. Tell me what is special, what is magical, what's important about your boozer.
Well, what's really special about I have a farm as well, so I'm kind of bit by in every way.
You're like Chesterfield's Jeremy Clarkson, aren't you?
but the small one.
You should bring in the cameras, Steve. You'll make a fortune.
Yeah, I've got a few rally cars as well.
Wow.
But what's special is 2 miles away is my pub and restaurant, and all the meat and a lot of the veg we produce goes to the farm, a bit like Jeremy Clarkson. And we believe in buying local, using local producers, working with farms close by. So that's what makes us special.
Steve, I salute you. What's the restaurant called?
It's the Peak Edge Hotel and Red Lion Restaurant.
There you go. Peak Edge Hotel and Red Lion Restaurant. Then you've got the Red Lion and I see the Red Lion and the Peak Edge. Yeah, the two businesses. Fantastic stuff.
Next to each other, yeah.
If you that sounds amazing. I'll be down there when my schedule allows. We'll do an outside broadcast, Steve. Lovely to see you, and please join us again soon. More power to you and the businesses that you're running and the people that you're employing. What an amazing special thing it is that Steve does, and what does he get in return? Clobbered by this government, who I don't think understand pubs. I don't think understand hospitality. I don't think they understand business. How bad is the weather going to get? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just how bad is the weather going to get? Britain has been hit by this storm. It's a real concern. According to the Telegraph newspaper, Britain started to shut down last night as Storm Goretti made landfall. A life-threatening weather bomb brought winds of up to 100 miles an hour to the southwest, whilst a foot of snow was forecast for parts of Wales, the Midlands and South Yorkshire. Well, the Midlands is in borderline lockdown at the moment. What holds for the weather in the days ahead? Let's get the views of the brilliant Joe Wheeler, who is a meteorologist at Square Raindrop. Good morning, Joe. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Mark. I hope you're well. Yes, we had this big storm come in yesterday, Storm Goretti, named by the French service. But if they hadn't, we would have done. And it arrived as a multi-hazard event. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, it meant that it brought some very strong winds, some heavy rain, it brought some snow, but not everything to everywhere. Now, the winds, of course, were strongest across the southwest. That's where we had a red warning. Officially, the highest gusts were 99 miles per hour, but unofficially, many stations reported wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. And I think at Padstow, 123. Now, that's yet to be confirmed. The A30 was shut. That's the main road in and out of Cornwall. Fallen trees, shutting it in both directions. The train stopped last night, I think, at 6 o'clock. Many places are without power this morning. And not just in Cornwall as well, parts of Wales and the Midlands. Because as this storm moved through, that's when it started to fall as snow. It closed Birmingham Airport last night. East Midlands Airport was shut this morning at 5 o'clock. And again, as I say, many people without power and struggling to travel because many of the trains weren't working either. Many flights delayed and diverted. It has caused chaos. Now it's moving away. Recently, it was snowing quite heavily in Nottingham, and it's going to make its way through the East Midlands, and it's slowing down now. So, in fact, as a rain event, it's going to affect central and eastern counties, and with that, some fairly blustery weather too. Have to say, in all of this, Scotland and Northern Ireland not really affected very much. They've already had snow showers over the last 4 or 5 days, and once again, schools are shut in parts of Scotland. Ice, I think, is more of a risk there. But this is all going to move away. Things become drier from the west, and you think it's all calmed down. Now, what I would say, Mark, is that usually you see when we have cold air across the country, and that's cold air that doesn't want to move. It's very sluggish. And then we get something coming in from the west, which is slightly milder. There's an undercut. We get snow, but then the air becomes milder behind it, and everything just turns to rain. But that hasn't happened this time. As this storm moves away, the cold air is coming back. So tonight, there's a risk of a widespread frost and obviously ice on the roads where we've got any water lying. And I think there'll be quite a bit of that. And then, as the cold air returns for the weekend, we get a system coming in for Sunday, which once again, as it moves into that cold air, could give some potentially disruptive snow.
And of course, I mean, far be it from me to say you're the expert, Joe, but I would suggest that ice is in some ways worse than snow.
Yes, because you can't see it very well. And also if the roads are gritted, but then there's sufficient rainfall that it washes that away. And then, of course, that freezes up. Ice is always incredibly dangerous. And in this country, it's handled really quite well with the gritters, etc. But that doesn't alter the fact that some roads and pavements will be invisibly really quite dangerous. So, I mean, that is something to watch out for. But we've had this cold air across us now for 7 to 10 days. And so I think we're getting used to that. The only difference being that initially it was a very dry cold. Certainly for central parts of the country, there was nothing on the floor to freeze up. This time there will be, as this storm has gone through, as the snow melt, and obviously we've got snowfields over Scotland, so temperatures there very low once again. But certainly I think the cold air is going to stay with us until after the weekend.
All right, so we're through the worst of it in terms of the snow, but ice is the next one to look out for. Ice and rain and cold temperatures. Would those be the headlines?
And potentially snow on Sunday. That is another watch one. As I say, this frontal system coming in from the Atlantic, trying to bring this milder air, but it will bump into this cold air once again. And that potentially could give snow for a time. The timing of these things is very important. If you think about yesterday's storm, it actually moved in overnight at a time when people were sleeping or trying to, with wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. But people weren't out. They weren't on the roads. They weren't on the pavements. They weren't going to and from work or school, So at least that was somewhat of a blessing. But of course, Cornwall as well, seeing those very strong winds. A lot of boats around at the moment, moored up or in harbours. Goodness only knows what the damage has been to those.
OK, Joe, thank you so much for the update. Really interesting, and look forward to catching up soon. Meteorologist at Square Raindrop, Joe Wheeler, who says, actually, we're going to stick with those low temperatures for the next 2 or 3 days. Rain will come, but with that potentially ice and then potentially snow again on Sunday. So, folks, we're not out of the woods yet. Let me know how the storm is affecting you, the conditions. Have you got snow? Have you got ice? Are you able to get to work? Are you in traffic? Is your bus been cancelled? Let me know. 03444 499 1000. Calling that number is Paul, who joins us now from Newport. And Paul, let's talk about latest government U-turn. This is the 12th U-turn in 18 months, this on hospitality venues and business rates. What's your appraisal of this government's attitude towards business?
Mark, I can only say, I'm no spring chicken. and I've been managing businesses for 40 years, okay? I have never met a government that is so anti-business. I don't understand it. I just can't get the reasoning behind the sort of lack of investment in getting things to grow and and encouraging things. When you think of it, I employ 5 people, okay? And all of those people, they pay their money. They've got to pay their taxes. They go out. They go to Alton Towers, spend money. By creating wealth, by small businesses, and there's more small businesses than anything else. 80% of businesses employ less than 7 people or something. But all these people, they generate money. I don't make a huge amount of money. Literally, everyone else is getting their 5 weeks holiday. If I get two weeks or 3 weeks away, I'm lucky. I'm too busy putting my efforts and my energies into running the business. So I don't understand why, if we accept that businesses are the lifeblood of the country, everything stems from making money. Everything stems from making money.
Especially when the government's in the red like it is at the moment. Free enterprise is our only way out, Paul.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way I see it, for some reason, the government has got this its route in. It's a bit like, you imagine us to be a patient, okay? So the UK is a patient. We got a dodgy ticker, and the government's sorting out the ingrowing toenails. It's completely focused on the wrong bit.
And it's quite ironic, isn't it, Paul? Because you've got a left-wing government that wants to spend money on public services. The one thing they need from that is growth. The only place that's going to come is from business, which they've clobbered.
100%. Here's my Mark. This is what I expect to happen. Rachel Reeves will say, "Okay, then we're going to back off and we're going to give the pubs, and it will be just the pubs, I suggest. We're going to give the pubs a bit of an easier time on the business rates. That money or that cash injection to the Treasury, they'll find somewhere else to do it. If they don't take a penny off of Peter, they will take it off of Paul. So the rest of us businesses, we're sat there thinking, wow, I'm pleased for the pubs, but that means we're going to get mullered. Because we are, as a nation, and we better start understanding it, as a nation, we are bankrupt. We have no money.
Correct.
Okay? And until people sit there and say, bugger, we have no money, we better stop spending on here. It's not like Isabel Oakeshott, I love her, absolutely love the girl. When she said that the government pensions at 28% contribution, are you having a laugh? So that £80,000 job, I mean, another 20,000. So if we say 20, roughly a quarter.
Yeah.
So you get £80,000 salary, and then they put £20,000 a year into your 20 grand. I'm lucky I've got 20 grand in total, let alone per year.
It is actually it's stealing, isn't it? It is a theft from the British taxpayer. It's fraud. It's corruption. It's so deeply wrong. And Paul, briefly, if you can, clock's against us at 8:46. But it seems what you're saying after 4 decades in business is you're starting to wonder what's the point.
100%. The problem I have now, Mark, okay, is I'm putting in my 40, 50, 60, and it's not just me. Most of my friends are businessmen. We're the ones putting in the sort of 50, 60, 70 hours a week. We don't get 5 weeks holiday because we own the business. You take what you can. Okay. At the end of it, when you look down, it's a bit like Clarkson's farm. He looks at the end of the year, he said, wow, for all that effort, I've made £140. We're getting to the end of the year and go, wow, for all that effort, I've made 30 grand. Do you know what? I can push trolleys round the Tesco's car park. The national minimum rate is £25,000 a year, right? Why would I want to make £30,000? Burning my socks off and not getting any holiday. I'll go and push Tesco's trolleys, and I'll get £5,000 less.
A damning verdict, Paul. I wish we had longer. Call me again soon, because you're an important voice on this show, because you're a wealth creator, and those are the people that have been demonised and clobbered by this government. Thank you, Paul. 0344 499 1000. Now, here at Talk, we're welcoming in the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 than with a chance to win some serious cash? That's right, 26 grand. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway, and it could be yours. 26k for 2026. Here's how to enter. For your chance to win, text the word TALK to 83338. TALK, 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January of this year. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. This is UK only, 18 plus, a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com/winning. So for your chance to win 26,000 big ones, text TALK to 83338. Good luck. Do it now. I want you to win. Next up, Reform's London mayoral candidate, Layla Cunningham. Don't go anywhere.
You can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I
This
haven't
is
got
not one.
time. Don't tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people. Then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why? Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinion.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
One of the big political stories of the week was the candidacy of Layla Cunningham as Reform UK's London mayoral candidate. She joins us now on Talk Breakfast. Good morning, Layla, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We've got viewers and listeners, as you know, across the country. To what extent are London's problems replicated across the nation?
I mean, I don't know, actually. I don't know. I mean, I know that crime is rampant across the country, but I do know that we have a particular problem in London just by the nature of what London is. You know, it's a tourist attraction. It's got a lot of commerce. It's a different beast, I think, to the rest of the country.
Most definitely. But obviously, I've got listeners and viewers in Belfast, in Glasgow, Edinburgh, in Birmingham, in Manchester, elsewhere, where knife crime and antisocial behaviour is rife. And that's very much the concern that you've got about the capital.
I mean, yeah, but, you know, and they have to blame their... If that is happening, then there is if there's a mayor or a police and crime commissioner who act like a bystander, like Sadiq Khan, they have to understand that they can't hide from this. This is them. This is their fault. Every scandal or every lack of responsibility or, you know, where the police don't act, that is a direct responsibility of those at the top. And if I was mayor, if you don't keep Londoners safe, then you've got to go.
Some people have accused you in your opening remarks about your candidacy for the London mayor position of talking down the capital. Some have pointed out that actually murder, for example, is at a 3 or 4 decade low.
So murder is extremely well prosecuted, obviously, but murder tells a very small picture of what's really going on. There's so much other crime that affects people. There's rape, there's knife crime, there's shoplifting, there's robbery, and those are an epidemic, that we are going through an epidemic for all of those.
Most definitely. I mean, you've got, I understand, 7 children, and some of your own children have experienced harassment and have been targeted coming out of school, and your experience is all too common for Londoners.
It's all too common. And I mean, yeah, I mean, they were actually targeted by masked gangs, and the crime is bad enough. But it's even worse when you call the police and they don't have enough resources to respond to you, or they don't respond, and you don't feel that you have backup. And that's when you know that the social contract between the police and the state and the citizen is broken, and people have lost faith in the law.
Why are you a Reform UK supporter and not a Conservative as you previously were? What's the difference between the two parties these days?
Oh, I think it's a massive difference because, I mean, number one, it was under the Conservatives that law and order broke down. You know, they shut so many magistrates' courts where all trials start. They cut police numbers. It was under Theresa May, actually, that she really politicised stop and search, and that completely stopped. And stop and search across the world shows that it really does reduce knife crime. And they didn't take, you know, they spoke about being the party of law and order, but they weren't. Reform is a party that understands what the country needs. They're not here to serve the party. None of us have joined Reform because we want to be part of some prestigious, you know, party that's been around for hundreds of years. No, we've all joined because we want to do what's best for the country, and we see that something's wrong. And we love it.
You are a former Crown prosecutor. To what extent has political correctness and a concern about being called racist made it more difficult for the police and the courts to do their job and to keep my viewers and listeners safe?
I haven't seen so much of that. What I have seen is that there has been a focus within the criminal justice system on hate crime. And that has diverted resources from violent crime, domestic abuse, other types of crime. I think the state has been going after words for too much, opinions and words. And I think we need to refocus on actually prosecuting and focusing on violent crime and crime that really affects people. And we have to, frankly, let people be a bit offended. I think it's fine. It's not up to the state to do that.
If the leader of Reform UK wins the election, which polls suggest he may well, Layla, he will reintroduce the two-child benefit cap. Have we got to get used to U-turns from Reform UK?
No, I haven't actually heard that yet.
Because it's our understanding that obviously it was the position of the party to actually scrap the two-child benefit cap, but I think it was going to be targeted towards working families. But in fact, it will now be reinstated fully. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Layla, has accused your leader, Nigel Farage, of racism because he said that he's worried about this policy, the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap, because the resources will go predominantly to immigrant families. Is that racist?
No, I don't think it's racist. I think British people deserve to be prioritised in their own country. And if you come to this country and you need to have benefits, you shouldn't have access to it. Why should the British person pay for someone else from another country? British people have been deprioritised. You know, for instance, social housing, refugees go to the top of the list because they're deemed most in need. And that is fundamentally unfair. We have to look at prioritising British people like any country does.
Indeed. Now, of course, we are, aren't we, Layla, a multi-ethnic, diverse society. We welcome people that come to this country who have contributed, worked hard, put more into the system than they've taken out. I think your family, originally from Egypt, did exactly that. I'm the son of Irish immigrants myself. My parents ran a pub for 40 years. They put in more than they took out. So there's not an issue about anti-immigration, but we do need a national conversation about how much of that pie goes to people that were born here versus those who weren't.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, British national should be prioritised for any kind of social benefits, whether it's housing or benefits. And we're not seeing that. If you know, we need to stop benefits for foreigners because that is also a huge pull for people coming here.
If there weren't benefits, then they would come because they wish to start a business or be economically productive. That's the point. If you're not going to get benefits, the only way you survive is to get a job and be active.
Well, exactly that, and that is what successful countries do. I mean, you look at Dubai; it was a desert, and now it's a very successful economy, and that's because people want to go there who want to succeed, and that's the kind of people we want to attract to this country. Those that want to contribute, set up, like you say, set up business, you know, be a net benefit to the country.
Layla, you're not woke, you're not politically correct, you're not one to play the race card. How ironic that the Chancellor, a figure of the left who find racism everywhere except when it stares them in the mirror, accuses your leader of racism, but actually inadvertently may be guilty of prejudice herself by implying that you have to be white to be British.
It's mad that she said that. because Britishness doesn't come down to the colour of your skin.
It's like she said the true bit out loud, or the mask slipped.
I think the mask slipped, and I think the mask has been slipping quite a lot in the past few months. Labour's not, they're not what it seems.
And
Mark, you didn't grow up in Kilburn, did you?
Well, no, funny enough, I didn't. I grew up in Kentish Town, but my uncle lived there, and I'm well aware of the Irish community in that area, which of course you'll know well.
Well, that's where I grew up, so I was just wondering. There were a lot of Irish pubs when I was growing up.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, you know, we lived with IRA terror, and it was not politically incorrect. It wasn't politically incorrect to call out the evil of the IRA. You weren't worried about the sensitivity of the Irish community when we called it out. It was obnoxious and evil and wrong.
Yeah, because speaking the truth should never be offensive. That's the problem, you know.
Well,
the truth shouldn't hurt, Mark.
No, and the truth doesn't care about your feelings, does it? What a fascinating conversation. Layla, a privilege to have you on the programme. Thank you so much for joining us. Your first talk interview since announcing your candidacy for the London mayoral contest. Your calls and opinions next. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
(9:03), top of the morning to you. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast, and a new year means a new schedule. And going forward, I'm delighted to be your host every Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And my priority will be getting your views, your opinions, your concerns on the national radio and television airwaves. Breaking this morning, the 12th U-turn in 18 months as Labour climbed down over business rate hikes for pubs and hospitality. But is it too little, too late? Meanwhile, the Chancellor blasts Nigel Farage over his decision to reinstate the two-child benefit cap. She claims it's racist. I'll be tackling that issue in today's Dolan's Dispatch in just 1 minute's time. Plus, senior military chiefs warn the Prime Minister about a £28 billion defence black hole. Could Elon Musk's ex-social media platform be banned in censorship Britain? And the SNP's secret plan to keep men in women's prisons. Plus, Storm Goretti garrots Britain, the worst snow for a decade. We're going to report live on how hard it is to get around. School closures, motorway madness, cancelled trains, cancelled flights. Let me know how the situation is where you are. The Midlands is in borderline lockdown. Tell me your tales of winter woe. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And we're going to talk about this extraordinary story. You couldn't make it up, folks. 2 homeless men were told they could not stay in their pre-booked Holiday Inn Express hotel on a night when temperatures plunged to -6. Of course, their big mistake was that they didn't come into the country on a dinghy, at which point they'd get the 5-star service, wouldn't they? They'd get a full English, 3 meals a day, a GP appointment, a visit to a dentist, a well-stocked mini bar in their hotel room, and tea and coffee making facilities. 2 homeless Brits cast out by a hotel that is so happy to accommodate people that have broken the law to get here. Make it make sense. Welcome to Broken Britain. Tory grandee Sir Michael Fabricant on the way, but as always at 9 o'clock every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, it is Dolan's Dispatch. Oh dear. Rachel from Accounts has put her foot in it again. Not by destroying the economy, by fueling unemployment, inflation and ever higher debt. No. On that one, it is mission accomplished. This time, she's committed the great crime of which the left accuse everyone else: racism. Now, not unreasonably, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, changed his mind about wanting to scrap the two-child benefit cap when it became abundantly clear that this expensive policy, which is going to cost you and I in excess of £3 billion a year, will disproportionately go to foreign-born Brits. Now, we can debate what people who have come to this country from overseas should and should not be entitled to. But thinking that she'd spotted an open political goal, poor old Rachel Reeves, right, the broken clock that's not even right twice a day, she managed to kick the ball into the stands by saying that Farage's position is racist because his focus on prioritising precious state resources on the British people is about skin colour. She said Nigel Farage effectively only wants white people to have benefits, except that Farage was talking about British people born in this country. So Rachel from Accounts doesn't seem to realise that there are some British people with all sorts of skin colours, but she thinks you've got to be white to be British. She said the true bit out loud. Isn't that racist? Well, notwithstanding that, I'm delighted that Nigel Farage has made this move for several reasons. First of all, it's not racist to prioritise the British people. That is how normal countries work before they've lost the plot. Secondly, I've got viewers and listeners to this show who over the years have thought very carefully about how many kids they can afford to have or whether they can afford to have kids at all. At a cost of over £3 billion, lifting the two-child benefit cap is all too often a blank cheque for unproductive, lazy people to breed like rabbits, paid for by hard-working alarm clock Brits. And that, by the way, is irrespective of race or colour. We've always had shirkers. We've always had chancers and freeloaders, and we always will. And it's great that we've got a politician calling it out, speaking up for the British taxpayer. Plus, Labour's definition of child poverty is nothing more than a political algorithm. You know what they say, there are lies, damned lies and statistics. Child poverty is calculated in relation to the wealth of others. And there is zero evidence that handing money to parents of large families will go to the kids or tackle the problem in the first place. We all hate child poverty. There is no one watching or listening to this show that wants a kid to go hungry, to go to school without food in their tummy, without clothing, without a safe, loving home. Of course not. But there's no evidence that this expensive policy of lifting the two-child benefit cap will achieve anything in that direction in terms of tackling the actual problem. And it's a great headline, isn't it? Lifting the two-child cap. A great headline for this smug administration, which is more concerned about ticking a box than improving the fortunes of the people of this country. And by the way, call me old-fashioned, but at the front of that queue should be those born here. 0344 499 1000, your reaction. I had an interesting conversation with Andrew Griffiths, who's the Shadow Business Secretary, earlier in the show. And I said, is the idea of Brits First an appropriate political slogan? He wouldn't answer that question. I've just had Layla Cunningham on, and she said, absolutely, with bells on. What do you think? Is it appropriate to prioritise Brits for the nation's precious resources? Let me know your thoughts. My number is 0344 499 1000. You can text me, text the word talking your message to 87222, or leave me a voice note, which PEDS has done on the cost of living. Take a listen.
Hi, Mark. Great to hear you, mate, on this dismal Friday morning. Listen, mate, talk about the state of Britain. I was absolutely devastated to see an advert on telly the other day. It was to give £3 a month for our elders during the winter time to keep them warm. It's 2026. Shame on you, Labour. Shame on you, Keir Starmer. Absolute disgrace, mate. Anyway, take care, bud. Ta-ra.
PEDS, thank you so much for calling out that madness, that crazy, crazy injustice. Those who govern us really are asleep at the wheel, aren't they? And they are governing against our interests. Let's speak now to one of my favourite ex-politicians. He's not in the House of Commons anymore, which means he can be honest. It is the formidable ex-Tory MP and now elite-level political commentator, Sir Michael Fabricant. Good morning, Sir Michael, and a Happy New Year.
And a Happy New Year to you, Mark. And I'm wrapped up warm. And one of the things about not being an MP is I don't have to wear a shirt and tie when I am on your show, because I can tell you it's very cold where I am.
Most definitely. Do you remember when your former leader, Mrs. Thatcher, was told about, you know, the pressures of heating your home, and she said, wear socks in bed and a hat?
Well, I'm not wearing a hat, as you can see, but I'm wearing a very, very thick sweater, and that's keeping me warm. And it was very interesting for those who've been watching you, as opposed to just listening to you, to see a picture just now which you showed of Lichfield, where I am not at the moment. I'm actually in the western part of Snowdonia in the national park. My gosh, I live right by that cathedral, but I'm not there at the moment. There's a picture of the cathedral up, if you're watching this on TV. And I live just by the cathedral, but at the moment, as I said, I'm in Wales, and there isn't any snow here because I'm a little bit too close to the sea for the snow to actually have got here. But there are a few. I'm looking now at about 5 very disconsolate sheep who look as if they're colder than I am.
Yes, I will say it's quite amazing that Wales and Scotland seem to have dodged a bullet when it comes to this rather dramatic weather.
Mid Wales got it bad.
Did it?
That I'm right by the coast.
Yeah, Midland and Mid Wales and South Yorkshire seem to be the particularly affected, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty difficult stuff. Storm Goretti, is it an example of Britain's crumbling infrastructure, and is your party that was in power for 14 years therefore partly responsible?
Well, I suppose it is. But on the other hand, you know, do you spend all your money on snowplows for something that happens once every 5 or 6 years? Of course, if you are gullible and believe those people who are saying, you know, there's going to be global warming, there wouldn't be any snow at all. But there is. I guess, you know, you have to sort of, if you're Sweden, when there's snow, you know, 6 months in the year, every year, you invest in loads of snowplows. Mind you, I have to say that when we had a bit of snow here in Wales a few days ago, the snowplows were out. I was quite impressed. That's Snowdonia National Park and Gwynedd for you. So well done them.
Most definitely. Interesting. I got an email from the Daily Sceptic, which is an excellent online newspaper, I think you'll agree, founded by Lord Toby Young, the country's unofficial free speech czar. And the headline in the Daily Sceptic today is "Dramatic fall in global temperatures ignored by narrative-captured mainstream media. Global temperatures and anomalies about global temperatures on both land and sea are dropping like a stone." Net zero, it's an interesting one to debate going forward. Greta Thunberg is very quiet this morning.
Yes, she is, which is very unusual for her, of course, because she's not just concerned about global warming. She's concerned about Gaza. In fact, I'm very surprised she's not in Venezuela. And no doubt we'll be seeing her also with her pug face, because I really can't stand looking at her, although I know there are plenty of people who can't stand looking at me, so there you go. I'm sure we'll be seeing her in Greenland before too long, defending Greenland against an American attack, which I'm sure is not going to happen at all.
Yeah, she's gone very quiet on net zero. Climate change is very last year, isn't it? Front page of the Daily Telegraph, Sir Michael. Rachel Reeves to climb down on pub tax. But this would be a reprieve, I think, for the most distressed businesses. You're looking at around 300 million that will be spared this industry. That's not even going to touch the sides for struggling landlords, is it?
No, and more to the point, you know, it's likely not to actually start to happen until 2029, which happens, of course, to be election year. So I don't think that's going to save many pubs in the meantime. And of course, a city like Lichfield has got lots and lots of restaurants and nightclubs. It's a great place to visit. And I can tell you that they're not going to benefit at all from this. The nighttime economy has been under stress for the last 10 years. But it's now particularly under stress ever since the budget, with 2% added onto employment fees, national insurance, which, of course, these firms have to pick up. And it just is making the nighttime economy, as they call it, unviable. And that's very damaging for cities like Lichfield and other tourist towns.
Most definitely. Pubs are struggling, but there aren't the state resources to actually support hospitality. Is that the fault of your lot, who were in power for 14 years, allowed the welfare bill to explode and crash the economy?
Well, you've raised a number of things there, Mark. First of all, the economy crashed for all of 3 weeks and then recovered. And employment continued to go down and growth continued to go up. So that wasn't crashing.
You're right. Unemployment was dropping. Growth grew. We had the highest growth in the G7 in July 2024 at the election. And we had inflation, Michael, of, wait for it, 2%.
That's right. And what do we have now? High inflation, unemployment going up, and growth going down. That's what's crashing the economy. But, you know, the government is going to spend billions of pounds on a scheme for ID cards, which won't even work. I'm all for ID cards if it would work, but it's not going to stop the boats. It's not going to stop people employing illegal immigrants. It's just a complete waste of money, and that money could have been used instead of the £2 billion, the 2%, which it's costing, which doesn't sound much, but believe me, on top of a large wage bill is a huge amount. And that is what is damaging companies which employ a lot of people. And that includes pubs, restaurants, nightclubs, and so on and so forth. And everybody but the poorest pubs and the smallest pubs are not going to benefit at all from what Rachel Reeves has just announced.
Well,
by the way, as you said in your introduction, that is the 12th U-turn on this budget. And that means the budget is unravelling, and that will mean that the pound will fall and inflation will go up still further.
Well, indeed, and every U-turn comes with a bill, and that money will have to come from somewhere. And, you know, it's like getting blood out of a stone, isn't it? You, Michael, very successful former politician and also former entrepreneur, a self-made man. Got this message from Sarah in Portsmouth. Good morning, Mark. I totally agree with your last two callers. We run a small business too, a boarding cattery. Now, Sarah said, we used to have 3 staff members, but after COVID, we never re-employed anyone. It's just too expensive for small businesses to have staff, too many outgoings and high running costs. Like your caller, we sometimes wonder why we do it all. Almost no holidays, and at the end of the day, you're taking home a minimum salary. Good thing that we love our job. Thank you for being a voice for small businesses. Appreciate it. Well, Sarah, we are a voice for small businesses. Many people watching and listening to this show, Michael, and they think, I'm a wealth creator, I work hard, 70 hours a week, I take risks. What is the point?
Well, one of the problems, I have to admit, is that there are so few people, not only in the Labour Party, but other parties too, who have actually started a business from scratch. Now, I set up a company with a friend of mine who used to work for the BBC. He was an engineer at the BBC, and I met him because I was a broadcaster there. And we set up a company to build and set up radio and some television stations. And we ended up doing it in 48 different countries all around the world. And we employed several hundred people manufacturing equipment and also going out and installing the equipment in these foreign countries, as well as broadcasters here in the UK. And, you know, cash flow, it's not just profitability, it's cash flow. It's the money coming in and the money going out which determines whether a business is a success or not. And the trouble is that politicians like Rachel Reeves just don't understand that. She doesn't come from a business background. She was employed briefly by the Bank of England before she was told to move on. And you know, that is not the same as actually setting up your own business and having to be conscious about how much is coming in each week and how much is going out to pay for your expenses, including wage bills.
Indeed, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Let's listen, if we can, Sir Michael, to this voice note from Trish on the subject of business.
I saw this coming with Labour. I sold my company, which employed 8 people, back in January of 2024. And it breaks my heart now to have seen that company go under. 8 good working people who no longer have a job because it's just unsustainable under this government. Absolutely heartbreaking. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Trish, and I wish that you were able to message me under happier circumstances. How about this from Dan?
Let's not forget, this country only functions down to the hard work of the British taxpayer. Those people that get up in all weathers, in the dark, puts a shift in, pays their taxes. There wouldn't be any welfare without the British taxpayer. So therefore, the Great British slogan should be, work hard and you'll be rewarded. Let's reward these people, like myself, like you, and others that are listening.
That was Dan. Amen to that, Sir Michael.
That's right. And, you know, the problem is that Labour don't realise that it's not their money which they're spending on, like getting rid of the 2-child welfare cap. It's your money. It's the taxpayers' money which goes through the government. And if you tax people too much, it's a disincentive. Back in the 70s, when we had a Labour government, there was the brain drain. This was where the most able young people were leaving this country because of the high taxation. And we're seeing it all over again. They just haven't learned the lessons of Labour's past. They're doing it again. Our most talented people are leaving the country, or people like many of your callers who are also talented, I might add, are just deciding it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it employing people, and it's just not worth it carrying on.
It's a travesty, it's a race to the bottom, and it doesn't end well. Sir Michael, I do hope when your schedule allows that you'll join us on a regular basis on Talk Breakfast. Really enjoyed that conversation. Sir Michael Fabricant is a former Conservative MP and now media commentator and political broadcaster. Much more to come. The 2-child benefit cap. Is the reintroduction of it racist? We'll hear from a leading cleric on that subject next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Peter's message, the show, if you give illegal immigrants, apparently, if they get a passport, they're instantly British. No, they are not, says Pete. Carl says, good morning, Mark. Great show as usual. It's 100% a little too late following this latest U-turn, as the pub owners will basically be in trouble whatever happens. As for Rachel Reeves, constantly using the race card as well as all other MPs from the Labour Party, well, they need to come up with something new because the race card is getting boring. Well, I'm glad we're discussing that this morning because Nigel Farage, if he becomes Prime Minister, will reintroduce the two-child benefit cap. Rachel Reeves has said it's a racist policy. Let's get the views now on this ethical issue from Reverend Canon Father Phil Harris. Good morning, Reverend, and welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. How are you this cold morning? It's certainly cold for me here in the West Midlands.
Oh, yes. Well, of course. I mean, you're right at the epicentre of the bad weather, aren't you? How bad is it where you are?
So, I mean, it took me about 10 minutes to get... I'm just looking over out my window that's that way. It took me about 10 minutes to actually get down to the oratory at the bottom of the garden where I actually work from. So that gives you an idea. That is pretty accurate. My street is a lot worse than that, I have to say. It is white.
Yes, the Midlands and also Central Wales are in borderline lockdown. Trains cancelled, no buses, gridlocked motorways, absolute carnage. What about this position now from Nigel Farage to reinstate the two-child benefit cap? The Labour government argue it's immoral because you're essentially going to eradicate child poverty or tackle child poverty with the policy of scrapping it. Plus, they suggested it's racist to scrap it. What do you think?
I was waiting for that card to actually come out that it's kind of racist, and of course it's been played now, hasn't it? As a cleric, one has to say that the first instruction from Almighty God to Adam and Eve was to be fruitful and multiply. And I'm very mindful of, in the central lobby of the Houses of Parliament, there is a psalm inscribed in the floor in Latin. That is Psalm 127 verse 1, and it says, unless the Lord builds the house, they that do so labour in vain. The interesting thing about that is the following verses talk about children being a heritage from the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is a reward. And it goes on to say, happy is the man who has his quiver full of children. And so as a Christian cleric, I have to go, I am for large families. The problem that we have in the UK right now is that families are having children at the rate of 1.4, British families at 1.4 per family. And the interesting thing of why this becomes a matter of racism, according to Rachel from Accounts, is that foreign-born people in the UK are having children at the rate of 3.4 per family. So the reason why she's played the race card here is because she actually knows who this is lifting out of who this money is going to, and that's
whose votes it's buying.
And that's the other part. And so, I'm kind of caught in the centre of saying, yes, I want people to have children and I want people to be supported. But let me take it another way. Benefits should be a temporary safety net. That's a reality. And so if they're supposed to be a temporary safety net, what we're actually doing now is we're creating families that live on benefits. And so what we have to do is, and it's soundbite politics, isn't it, Mark? We need to fix housing. We need to fix the cost of living. We need to fix the cost of energy, which comes into all of this. And then we need to enforce who's getting the benefits. And unless we have public consent for all of that, which is the fuel of welfare, by the way, then we're in trouble. And we're in trouble. So we've got to keep this 2-child cap because the money isn't going to benefit the hard-working people of this nation. And it's actually making this, again, an attractive proposition for those that want to come here illegally. So this whole context of, this is racist, that's why Rachel has gone down that route. So I'm pro-family, but benefits must be a safety net, not an open-ended entitlement. And before you lift that cap, you have to fix housing and bring the cost of cost base down of food. And since COVID, food has gone up in the supermarkets. You look at what you get in your basket now, and you kind of go, how much? And so you notice that what they're doing with soundbite politics is they're going, we're going to lift people out of poverty, and we're going to, in April, give you help with your energy bills. And it's just soundbite politics because it isn't meeting the needs of the people.
Most definitely. And living within your means is a fundamentally Christian principle, isn't it? And it's something that my viewers and listeners do, but this government doesn't seem to, and it's not living beyond its means on behalf of many families in this country who are having children with abandon, and sadly not always the most economically productive.
Well, unless we can only give out of what we've got. And, I believe that people should be in a position, all people should be in a position to bless other people less fortunate. And that's the heart of the Christian message, but so is stewardship. And Jesus teaches extensively on good stewardship. And the kingdom of heaven is like, and he gives all kinds of takes on good stewardship. And this is not good stewardship. It's give hardworking people's money away to those who are less deserving. And that's morally bankrupt.
Most definitely. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I had a Conservative MP on earlier. He's the Shadow Trade and Business Secretary, Andrew Griffiths. And I asked him for his response to this debate that's been sparked by Nigel Farage. Now, Nigel, if he becomes Prime Minister, Reverend, will reintroduce the 2-child benefit cap because of his concerns about how much of that benefit, £3 billion a year, will go to foreign-born families. His position is we need to put the British people first. What is the Christian and ethical view on that?
Well, that's exactly that. And I think that the church has forgot its teaching and what the Old Testament says about actually serving your own people first. You can only bless people out of what you've got. And we've got this nonsensical idea now, and dare I say teaching by certain bishops and senior clergy, who it's about give, 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 give. Well, if the basket is empty, where are the resources coming from? And we must seek first to understand and then be understood. We can only give out of the blessings that we actually have and own ourselves. It is immoral to borrow to give. And we're in this situation now where I looked at some figures in anticipation of being on today, Mark, and 40.4%, and this is ONS data, of births in England are where either one or both parents are born outside of the UK.
Reverend, what a lovely blessing to have you on the programme. I hope this will be one of many on-air conversations in 2026. My thanks to Reverend Canon Father Phil Harris, who actually took 10 minutes to get through his garden just to get to his place of worship. That's how bad the weather is in the West Midlands. Let me know what you're going through. Breaking news as you join us at 9:34 on Talk Breakfast. Elon Musk's platform X has limited image editing with its AI tool Grok for paying users after it came under fire for allowing people to make sexualized deepfakes. There has been a significant backlash after the chatbot honored requests from users to digitally alter images of other people, including celebrities, by undressing them without their consent. But Grok is now telling people asking it to make such material is only available to paid subscribers, and that means their name and payment information must be on file. There you go, that's a developing story. So it looks like the platform X may survive in censorship Britain for the time being, and I hope so, because apart from Talk, it's about the only platform for free speech in this country. Next up, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has accused Nigel Farage of racism. Is she right? I'll be speaking to one of the country's leading journalists for a response.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is exactly 9:36 on Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. Front page of the Daily Mail: pub U-turn is too little too late. Labour is gearing up for another humiliating U-turn. That would be the 12th in 18 months, by the way, as ministers last night signalled a climb down on tax hikes for pubs. Let's get reaction now from one of the country's finest journalists, star columnist at the Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges. Good morning, Dan. Happy New Year.
And to you.
Dan, will this stop the political bleeding, a U-turn on business rates for pubs and other hospitality venues?
No, it won't, because it's indicative of what Labour's fundamental problem is, which is, frankly, to be blunt, Rachel Reeves doesn't know, literally, and we can see it with this latest U-turn, she literally doesn't know what she's doing as Chancellor. It's only, obviously, a few weeks since we had the budget, and already elements of the budget are blown up in her face to the extent she's having to backtrack on them. So whilst obviously a U-turn on this will obviously be welcomed by the pubs themselves and by customers, and is quite clearly the right approach, it doesn't address the fundamental problem, which is Rachel Reeves keeps making these economic and political gaffes and blunders. And, speaking to Labour MPs, there's, some relief amongst Labour MPs that this U-turn is now being contemplated. But as one Labour MP was saying to me this week, this is indicative of the fundamental problem Labour MPs have, which is that they keep receiving these appeals for unity and loyalty from Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. But every time they go out to bat for a particularly contentious government policy at significant political cost to themselves, they then find a few weeks later the government's U-turned on it. So as one MP was saying to me, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm just not going to go out and defend any controversial policies from this government, because the theory is that they'll have the rug pulled out from under them because the government will then change the policy a few weeks later.
Most definitely. I want to throw this government a bone, because the bottom line is I'm mystified, Dan. If you were a supporter of this Labour administration, you would want to have economic growth, because, every government, all administrations need growth. That's spending power, it's national income, particularly a Labour government that wants to invest in public services. And yet every policy has ultimately damaged growth. Why has this Labour administration, which needs national income, done so much to destroy it?
Well, that again comes back to the fundamental issue I was talking about, which is frankly, Rachel Reeves has demonstrated she is not capable of being Chancellor of the United Kingdom. It's a brief to which she is just simply not well suited. We're now approaching a year. This time last year, Rachel Reeves suddenly did a huge U-turn in terms of the government's economic strategy. We'd had the budget before that, which obviously she had raised these huge amounts of new tax on business. In January, she suddenly stood up and said, actually, my government's priority for the year is going to be growth, growth and growth. But the problem was she didn't do anything about the tax burden. Now, it doesn't matter whether you sit on the left of politics or on the right of politics. It's just basic economics. Everybody knows that if you significantly raise taxation on business in the short to medium term, at a minimum, that is going to constrict growth. And that's exactly what we've seen. Now, we've had another budget from Rachel Reeves in which she's at least maintained the tax burden on business and on consumers, and that will have the inevitable effect. So we will not have significant growth this year or next year or the year after that, and the OBR forecasts have been very, very clear about that.
Most definitely, it's a big headache. This, Dan, is a voice note from Kitty on business rates, and I think she speaks for many. Take a listen.
My husband is 62. He works outside. He runs a very small ground working company. And I said to him this morning, I don't even think there's any point in him working anymore, because all we see from his income is money going out on the forced VAT, which cripples business. If he quotes for jobs, he has to add VAT on because it's a ridiculously low threshold. Income tax, national insurance, he just gets clobbered every which way, and it feels like we actually have no income coming in. And I think there are millions of business people like this, and why should he go outside after 40 odd years of working? It's heavily snowing here in Kent. He's risking his health and everything, and our money just goes to the invasion that's coming in on the Kent coast.
This government could continue, couldn't it, for another 3 years? If you listen to what Kitty has had to say and her husband, we're in economic quicksand as a country. Wealth creators are being clobbered. Productive people are closing their businesses, not hiring. Are we going to have some kind of major economic reset from this government at some point?
Well, we're not unfortunately going to have a major economic reset as long as Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are leading the government. I mean, that's been quite clear. I mean, obviously you've had that voice message, and you said about wealth creators being clobbered. The reality is, after the last budget, everyone's being clobbered. I mean, if you remember, again, this was if you like, the centrepiece, supposedly, of the government's economic strategy was the pledge, but from Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, that in their words, working people would not pay more tax under this government. And in the budget, Rachel Reeves had to admit that they'd lied about that, and working people were going to pay more taxes. The reality is, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are locked in to this economic approach. Keir Starmer had the opportunity over the last year and a half to recognise what everybody else can see, that Rachel Reeves, whatever her maybe her other political talents, is not suited, as I say again, to be Chancellor. He could have appointed someone else. He could have set a different economic direction for his government and for the country, and he chose not to do so. So it's quite clear we're locked into, if you like, this economic death spiral as long as the two of them remain in place. Now, my own view is that they're not actually going to be in place for much longer, but obviously that's very much dependent on how the politics in the next few months plays out.
Most definitely. And this doesn't have to be a left versus right issue, does it, Dan? Because I'm old enough to remember a Labour government that was very pro-business, and that was Tony Blair and New Labour, who love-bombed the City of London because they saw the enormous national income that came from the square mile, and they kept taxes down, including the top rate, to 40%.
But this is the strange thing. I mean, but Rachel Reeves, if you recall, in the run-up to the election, Rachel Reeves was love-bombing the city as well. I mean, there was a huge operation. I remember reporting on it at the time, that she was going out, other Labour ministers were going out courting business, making very, very positive pro sort of business messages. Now, when Labour came in, Labour did, obviously, let's not sugarcoat it and let's not rewrite history. The Conservative Party did leave government with the economy in a mess.
Yeah.
Did have difficult choices to make. But as I said, the choice that Rachel Reeves was supposed to make was to place the short-term burden of taxation on business. Fine, she took and to protect working people from tax rises. Well, that was fine, but that was obviously going to have an inevitable impact on growth. And as we've seen, that strategy didn't work anyway, because she did have to raise taxes on working people. So on no level, even on her and Keir Starmer's own definition of what the strategy should be, can the strategy be said to be working?
She's not that great at politics as well as economics, is she, Dan? Because she's picked a fight with Nigel Farage. Now, Nigel Farage, if he becomes Prime Minister, will reinstate the two-child benefit cap. To be fair, that's a reform U-turn. We might have to get used to reform U-turns. It sounds like they're making it up as they go along. But he'll reinstate the two-child benefit cap, partly because he's concerned the extent to which that benefit will go to foreign-born British families. Now, Rachel Reeves has accused the Reform leader of racism, but she said that it's because, essentially, if he's pro-British, that means he's pro-whites, which is a pretty unfortunate thing for a Labour Chancellor to say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Rachel Reeves again has made another blunder and set her hair running with her comments, and it's a stupid gaffe.
Well, she's inadvertently said something that's provably racist. It may not have been intentional, but those are the words that came out of her mouth, aren't they?
Exactly, and that's. But as I say, I mean, frankly, I'm used to these sort of gaffes from Rachel Reeves, and she's fallen into a trap that Farage has set. But I think it is. I don't think this is necessarily the best route for Nigel Farage and Reform either, because, as you said, this is another screeching U-turn on a major plank of economic and welfare policy from Nigel Farage. Up until yesterday, Reform actually supported the raising of the lifting of the two-child benefit cap. So again, when it comes to the substance of economics, politics, welfare, again, Reform, frankly, found to have been all over the place. And I think that's in part why we saw at the second half of last year, Reform starting to flatline. Indeed, Reform's support starting to fall back. Now, as we've gone into this year, there are some signs again that Reform may be starting to pick up a little bit more momentum again. But the reality is, as we move forward and as we get closer to the election, Nigel Farage and Reform just can't afford these sorts of gaffes themselves. They can't just keep making up major policy on the hoof if they are serious about trying to form the next government.
Well, Dan, I'm very much looking forward to your brilliant column in the Mail on Sunday this weekend. Always a must read. My thanks to Dan Hodges, who is the star columnist at the Mail on Sunday, broadcaster and political commentator to boot. Lots more to come. By the way, quick announcement here at Talk. We are welcoming in the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. What better way to kick off 2026 than with a chance to win some serious cash? That is right, 26 grand in your pocket. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway and it could be yours. 26k for 2026. Here's how to enter. For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. That is 83338. Text cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January 2026. And that's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. This is UK only and 18 plus. And let me tell you, this is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com/win. Your chance to win. Text TALK to 83338. That is 83338, 26k in your back pocket. I want you to win. Go do that now. Next up, how bad is the weather going to get? This is Talk Breakfast.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Storm garrots Britain. It is 9:50 on Talk Breakfast. This is a voice note from Tom in Rugby.
Storm Grotty, or whatever it's called, has been a bit of a damp squib. There's about, well, half a centimetre of very wet snow on the walls. Everywhere is just full of slushy snow. It's raining. It's not particularly thick. The roads are clear. It's all been a bit of a damp squib, really. Cheers.
Thank you for that, Tom. What about Sharon with a weather update?
It's a lovely day, snowy. We're up on the Pennines and us, well, we've got a tiny bit of snow. Everybody's been on about going, I put something off yesterday because they gave us a red or yellow warning not to go out. We've had this loads of times thicker than what we've got today. So no, it's not that bad. Also, about British as being first. Surely we should come first. It is Britain. Here we are British and we should come first. Anybody else, they should be behind the queue after the British people.
Sharon, I agree with you on that. Britain first, Brits first. I'm not afraid to say it. Let's discuss the weather in further detail with a very good friend of mine, the travel editor of the Sun newspaper, Lisa Minnow. Lisa, Happy New Year, but not a very happy New Year to those hoping to travel.
That's right. It's pretty chaotic out there. I mean, I think depending on where you are in the country, you can have a very different version of what this has been like, this storm, because it has really impacted, particularly the Midlands and Wales. There's really serious problems there in terms of the railways. Both Avanti and West Midlands Railways saying we're not running any services at all until this afternoon. A lot of other lines basically saying that they're going to have much reduced timetables. So, I mean, it's not great for the trains at the moment. Check before you travel. And of course, those high winds, not just impacting us and the snow, not just impacting us, but across Europe as well. So we're seeing 25 cancellations from BA from Heathrow. There's cancellations from Birmingham, which is now opened. It was closed overnight, as was East Midlands. They're now both open again, but there's still delays and cancellations. And we're seeing quite a bit of problems at Luton as well. Apart from that, you've also then got the likes of Charles de Gaulle in France, Amsterdam and airports in Germany that are also having some serious delays and cancellations. So it's still a pretty sticky situation out there.
Most definitely. I'm quite sympathetic to issues around roads and rail, but is it a failure on the part of our airports that they've had to cancel flights, Lisa?
I wouldn't say so much a failure. I think the fact is that our airports are running, pretty much close to capacity at all times anyway. And I think what we've had a lot of these is sort of a knock-on effect in that we've had really serious problems across Europe for about the last week in terms of serious amounts of snow. And when you've got those low-cost airlines where they're getting the most out of those planes by flying them on perhaps 4 or 5 sectors in any one day, it doesn't take a lot to have an issue once you've got a plane delayed at an airport in Europe coming back or crews going out of hours. So, I mean, it's still definitely something that is going to impact. And we are getting better at the de-icing side of things. Obviously, the likes of Birmingham, they did have a significant amount of snow there, and that will be something that, because it's not usual, it is going to take time to get over.
How does our transport infrastructure, Lisa, compare in these conditions to our European neighbours, would you say?
Well, I think we're doing pretty okay, actually. I mean, we've seen huge numbers of cancellations, particularly in Amsterdam and Paris over the last few days. It's not just us who suffer from this, and it has been quite significant, the impact. Those high winds as well, also having an impact. It's, we've seen Jet TV. It's very difficult to land a plane in high winds. There's also an alert at the moment about DFDF sailings from Dover. They're delayed as well at the moment because of those high winds in the English Channel.
And now would be a good time, wouldn't it, to escape for some winter sun, Lisa?
Very much so. I don't know what we're all still doing here, to be honest. We should be getting away.
Yeah, there's a few people already in sunny climes enjoying the conditions. Do you think it's going to be a big year for international travel for my viewers and listeners? How does the economy affect people's travel plans, Lisa?
Well, do you know what? We've been in this sort of cost of living crisis for a couple of years now, and all I can say is that us as a British public, we love our holidays and we will prioritise that over anything else. So yes, people are perhaps changing the way they're travelling slightly. We're seeing a lot more people travelling in the spring and the autumn. Now that's because the prices are lower, but also because the temperatures might be a bit more comfortable if you're going to the really hot destinations in the Med. And people are maybe saying, right, I want to do all inclusive. I want to know that I've got exactly all of my holiday paid for. One other cocktail by the pool, that's fine, I can do it. So all inclusive has been very popular. And then also we're just choosing where we're travelling a bit differently. So yes, we're still heading to the Spain and the Balearics and Canaries in the same numbers. But we're also looking a little bit further afield. So North Africa has been really popular over the last 6 months, and I think it will continue to be into this year. The likes of Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, all of those are offering really good value prices, and the temperatures are nice pretty much year round. So I think that's another place that people will be looking towards, because really good value and decent weather.
Let us imagine that we're travelling abroad somewhere sunny and warm. What do you tend to get for an all-inclusive package?
In terms of what do we get in terms of pricing?
Well, no, what do you get in terms of, you've paid your money. What can you expect? Is it 3 meals a day? Is it free drinks?
It is, yes. Now, it very much depends. You know, like you can have a 3-star hotel in one destination that would be very different to a 3-star hotel in a different destination. But generally, an all-inclusive package would include a buffet restaurant where you're going to be enjoying at least breakfast, lunch and dinner. There'll be snacks in the day. There'll be all-inclusive drinks. Now, depending on what type of all-inclusive it is, your 5-star high-end all-inclusive, that will include premium spirits, premium cocktails.
Wow.
It will include specialty restaurants, so you'll have not just a buffet restaurant, but individual restaurants with different types of cuisine. So there's really a big range out there. So what you do effectively get what you pay for. Cheaper all-inclusive will still give you, 3 meals a day, decent food, decent drinks, perhaps not branded spirits and cocktails, but local spirits and cocktails.
That'll do me.
But for most people, as you say, absolutely fine. And if you're travelling with kids, it's a really great way of travelling because you're not having to worry about buying them ice creams or if they don't eat the meal that you've just paid out for. It's all included in the actual price.
And briefly, in terms of if you take an all-inclusive deal, then forget about the diet by the sounds of it.
Very much so. That's not what holidays are for. Holidays are for indulgence.
Lisa, really enjoy your coverage of travel stories in The Sun newspaper. Lisa Minow is the travel editor of The Sun, which is absolutely brilliant for those rather exciting stories about what sunny places you could go to. And I'd like to be anywhere else other than snow-ridden Britain, Alex Phillips. Top of the morning.
Snow-ridden? I ain't snow-ridden.
London.
That is a drizzly mess out there. I have
is.
just had to walk about 1,000 miles in it as well because of tubes playing up. How bad is it snow-wise, though? Because
Midlands, forget about it. Lockdown, basically.
Yeah, but look, I want centimetres, Dolan. I don't want the fact we've locked down because we're useless.
To all the boys, let me tell you,
Mark,
Alex Phillips,
it's not even 10 in the morning.
Family show. I will say that, I've had messages in, I think the West Midlands in particular, Central Wales as well. You're looking at a foot of snow minimum. So it's pretty bad. Yeah.
It is because I've heard reports of about 2 centimetres, and I'm like, really?
There are other parts where it's struggled, and of course, all it demonstrates is our crumbling infrastructure, doesn't it? No reservoirs, polluted rivers. Yeah. Not enough runways at our airports. The list goes on.
The list goes on and on and on, doesn't it? And I haven't been on air for a week, and it's been a crazy old week, hasn't it?
Hasn't it just, though? By the way, what do you make about this Nigel Farage race round?